What's up? What's up? This is Still Abdul here for Stay of the Fandom Live. Y'all know when we come live, we're talking about topics that pertains to the fandom, how we want to react to it. When we talk about the fandom today, we're talking about DC overall. I think Batman's a pretty big IP that we should be talking about, and Batman Gate has picked up a lot of steam, really within the last, since the summer started, but within the last couple of days. I've been in a lot of mentions talking about this. Now, I want to say before we get started here, people know kind of my stance on Matt Reeves' The Batman film. I did a full review and reaction to the film. And partly, that's probably why I kind of stayed away from the story as long as I did. Because people was reaching out to me for a couple months saying, still cover this, right? And they know how I wasn't a fan of Matt Reeves' film. But it's not about what you like or whatever. It's about artistic integrity. It's about rewarding people. And do we have a case here, right? Well, we don't have to speculate. We got the man here himself, Chris Wozniak, the Woz, as I'm gonna call him affectionately throughout this show. We're gonna talk about Batman Gate and get to the bottom of it. So have y'all questions ready. And people may be triggered, but we're gonna get this going. All right. Oh man, we're talking about Batman Gate. Again, this is Still Abdul. We're here with the man himself behind the hashtag, Chris Wozniak. How are you doing today? And welcome to the channel.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. You're the notorious Woz, is what I'm being told.
This weekend, right? Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm told. They're like, yo. They're like, yo, this guy is so dangerous. I got so many DMs, Chris. Really? Like, they're just like, oh my God.
Yeah, there's a lot. You want to hear something super funny? I didn't know that there was this whole Zack Snyder against the Matt Reeves camp thing going on until I dropped the video. I had no idea what I was stepping into. I just watch Batman movies. When they come out, I didn't know there was this whole debate, and it was so heated. And, it's crazy.
Yeah. But it's not about that today. First of all, shout out to Penny J. Much love to Penny J out there. Slap the hell out of Gary if he's next to you. But this is very interesting. Now, and again, that is true. There's a segment of the Snyder fandom that, wasn't jiving, right, with Matt Reeves, the Batman film. But that's not what this is about, right? It's not what we're talking about today. We're talking strictly about your story. Supposedly, reportedly, that Matt Reeves, the film that he put out, took your plot just in general. Is that what we're talking about today?
Yeah, I don't know how to phrase that in a nice way.
He stole your shit. Okay, I'll say it for
you. What are you gonna do? Yeah, I tried to find a nicer way to say that, but it was, I couldn't think of one. You
on the channel? No, we cut through all this, right?
I couldn't think of another way to roll that out. So it is what it is.
Black Wolf Inc. Here with the super chat. And again, definitely send questions in to Woz here, whether it's just normally in the chat, super chat, or if you
that's the whiz.
Support via PayPal, use the Stream Elements link, please, for that. But we got Black Wolf Inc. saying, if you watch Seinfeld, then you will get this. I'm the Woz, and nobody beats me. I'm the Woz. You said what'd you say today?
The whiz. You don't.
The whiz, right? So you caught the reference, right?
Yeah,
you caught the reference of that. Shout out to you. So again, in the chat, again, on this channel, all opinions are welcome. Let's have a constructive conversation about it, and we'll get to the bottom of this. I think today we're gonna get to the bottom of this. We got Skywalker the Jedi. Said, what a day. Hashtag Batman Gate in the morning with Leon. He was on this. He played a video with you earlier, Chris. You had a recorded video with him. The cool table in the afternoon, still in the evening. Can't wait to see this. Hella hype. Hashtag Still Nation. Yes, we are here. We are here to talk about this. And let's waste no time. Chris, first off, just a brief introduction, just so the viewers, if they didn't Google you yet, Chris. what's your affiliation, I guess, with DC Batman? If you want to do a brief introduction.
Yeah, I mean, I used to draw and do a little writing for DC back, and also Marvel and a little tiny bit of Image and Dark Horse, whatever. But obviously here, this conversation we are talking DC, and in right about 1990 when Archie Goodwin took over the Batman office, I submitted a story to him, and this is the same story that we're talking about, and it's a story that And honestly, I thought it was the only Batman story I ever wrote, but a friend of mine just found another one apparently I co-wrote, but I haven't been able to read yet, in 92. But that story that I submitted, I just really liked. I knew it was a good Batman story. I thought it was when I first wrote it, way back in the day, like on an electric typewriter and everything. I thought it was like, the best Batman story ever. I was like showing it to all my friends, you gotta read this, So, I was really hyped about it. And so, I just, the thing is that Archie liked the story, but he, I had to bug him for a couple of weeks for him to read it. But when he finally, caught me in the office, I was in the office caddy corner, he came across and he said, he asked me if I really wrote it. And I was like, yeah, I wrote it. And he goes, did you really do that by yourself? And I was like, yeah, it's my story. And he thought it was great, but he also said, he says, like, it's a great story, but Paul and Jeanette are never going to let you do it. It's too big. It's too big a Batman story. He said, and literally, I'll never forget. He said, if you were Frank Miller, we'd let you do it tomorrow. And, and I didn't know, like, I was trying to get out of penciling because that's not easy for me to do, but writing comes easy, so, and there are office politics in those days. If you ink, it's hard to get penciling gigs, and if you pencil, it's hard to get writing gigs. There's that whole, they have a perception, and you get locked into it. And so, I was trying to move out of it, which is why I wrote it to Archie. Archie was new to the office. He was coming from Marvel, and so he didn't know me because I hadn't done any work at Marvel yet. So I was like, this is a good opportunity. Plus, this is like right after the Keaton film. Everybody wanted to do a Batman project, and so. You're
talking about 90s, like you said, right? You're talking about the 90s.
It's like 90. It's like literally
90, period. Okay.
Yeah, because I saw the second story that this guy sent to me, and that's dated 92. But I thought, I just thought, if I'm going to do a Batman story, let me go big. And so I wrote a sequel to Miller's Dark Knight, and so that's what that plot is meant to be. That's why Batman is older.
End of career.
That's the so that's how it all came about.
That's dope.
And over the years, I repitched it, back to DC a number of times, and gave it to other artists that were, DC artists and familiar with the Batman office, and I approached them. It was just like when you're talking to guys and talking about projects and everything, if they were like looking for something, I just kind of pull it out and say, I got this Batman project we never did. It's a really good story. You want to go approach the office with it.
Had it on the back burner the whole time.
Yeah, just sat around forever.
Interesting. We're gonna get into this definitely. Now, just on a side note, Woz, you got some other projects on the side here? Like what's going on?
Yeah, I'm not here to plug my other projects because I don't want people to think that we're doing this to plug my new project. But
we'll do that next string.
Yeah, but I'll give it a mention. Next month, I'm going to launch a new graphic novel. It's called Penelope Powerhouse. It's it looks cute, but it's adult animation kind of humor. It's not. For kids.
We won't give a damn here, Chris. We won't give a damn. Yo, we plug here. All right, they call me everything here too, man. It's all good. It's all you in good company with the chat here. Again, shout out to the chat. Everybody be real cordial. Everyone's just curious about the situation. We're gonna get educated today. I promise y'all. We got Geeko Olaji with a 10 pound. I think it's a 10 pound. I don't know what currency that is, but they say here, keep doing what you do, bro. Big up from France. We got France watching us. Wise. We worldwide right now. Seal Nation in the chat. Seal Nation. Funny. Now I put this up. Now we got 180 in the chat. Smash a like. Subscribe. Now we got Chris Wozniak here right now. You heard about the hashtag Batman Gate. We're gonna talk about this today. We're gonna get into it.
And just to let everybody know, we don't know each other, right? We've never met.
That's our first time actually talking.
This is our first time talking, and also I specifically asked, don't prep any questions, but let it roll, and just whatever comes, and I'll answer whatever.
Yeah, and my viewers, they're used to that approach too. It's like, we come in raw,
Yeah.
natural, and that's what we're gonna do. Because hey, I'm just saying, I know people like, well, it's gonna be like some softball questions. No, I mean, I'll just say I haven't told Waz everything I'm gonna ask him, right? But I think we're gonna, get into
Then doesn't matter to
some
me.
tough
Let's
questions.
let's go.
Let's
Yeah.
do it, right? Now,
Yeah.
it says here, as far as on bleedingfool.com, which is very close to bleeding cool. So they almost tricked me with this website. But they did chronicle your meeting of Michael Uslan, who someone's connected with like every Batman film, right?
Yeah.
Batman fans, if they know about production, they kind of know who this guy is. Now,
he's
it
produced all the
chronicalizes
movies.
all
He's
of them.
produced
So his
all
name's a
right
part
from
of it.
Keaton on. Yeah.
Gotcha. So let's talk about your meeting with him. Let's see. Now you touched on the 90 point, like you said here. And then when did you meet Uslan? 2008.
New York Comic Con.
New York Comic Con. What was this a shame? Now it says here, like, you're just like, I just want some stories, gave him the card. But what was you thinking in that you met him there?
Yeah.
What was going on there?
I had a booth. I was going to do some help. I'm gonna have let me go turn that off. Otherwise, it's gonna.
Oh, you good? Yeah, you good.
One second.
Good. The chat's ready. I know everybody's. We getting all into it. We digging today. All the questions you want to ask today. That's what we're doing. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to everybody being cordial. Like I said, being cool in the chat.
Sorry about that.
Everybody just wants a real. It's all
so
good.
What were we
Chris.
talking about? Uslan at the show.
Yeah. What was going on there? What was the energy there? Like y'all seemed cool in 2008.
Yeah, he seemed really nice. There was nothing weird about it. I had a banner. I was gonna self-publish a new comic series called Barren Soil. I had a big banner with the logo up and everything, and I had like sample copies printed up and everything. So he already had in his arm like a small stack of comics already. So he apparently been making rounds. But he approached my table and said, I really like the title of your comic. Do you mind if I have a copy? I'm a film producer. I'm always looking for good ideas. So what are you going to say? Of course, I said, yeah, sure. Here's a copy. And he gives me his card. And that was it. I didn't know who he was, and he walked away, and he was nice, and but like I said, he just moved on, and looked like he was collecting stories.
And so you walked away from that like, okay, I met someone, wasn't sure who that was, because I had to look up Michael Uslan. I didn't know how connected he was, right?
Yeah, I didn't know. I like at the time I didn't recognize the name because with movies, you don't really pay attention to producer names. And so when after I got home, I Googled him. I saw he was the executive producer of all the Batman films. And I think at that point we were this is already after the second Nolan movie, I think, 2008.
Okay. Right.
So
it's Dark Knight time. Yeah.
Right. And I was like, holy smokes, this is the Batman producer. I got this killer Batman story has been kicking around forever.
Yeah, right.
And so of course I sent it to him. The guy was like, I'm always looking for good stories. I said, like, yeah, this is a great Batman story. We never did it, never got around to doing it at DC. It would make a great Batman film, and that was that. I didn't hear back, and I didn't know anything about any use of it, until I actually watched the movie on HBO Max.
Right, and we'll definitely get to that. First off, a raver in the chat, he says, in your version of the movie, did Batman not know Spanish? He didn't know what El Bata was.
Yeah, what we're talking about here is the Riddler storyline. And because my plot was just a treatment, and it's not a full script. It's a complete story, totally, but it's not a full screenplay.
Like the full dialogue.
It's a treatment, yeah. But
exactly.
But when I say they use my story, we are talking about the Riddler storyline in the film, which is the main storyline of the film. I have nothing to do with the Catwoman subplot or
this is good.
The Penguin
I'm glad
subplot.
You're saying this.
Yeah, that's got nothing to do with me. Just the main storyline, which is the Riddler storyline. That whole story, soup to nuts, is lifted from my plot.
Great, and we're going to talk about that breakdown for sure. So I'm glad you made that differentiation of what's going on. And that was a joke, that question about the Spanish part, because on my channel we make fun of that part, that scene a lot. But so again, the execution, that's what we're talking about. But it says here again, you didn't know who Uslan was, so you're like, okay, let's see what we got. Now it says here you emailed the plot to Michael Uslan via email. Now, were you promised something before you emailed it, or like what happened there?
No. I mean, he gave me his card, I sent it to the email on his card. We didn't have a discussion, about him, using it or anything like that. But also, I mean, Uslan's a lawyer himself, so he knows that he can't just go take somebody's story and use it.
Okay.
He knows better than that. You get, if and a lot of people don't get this. They're like, oh, you wrote a story with Batman in it. That means that DC owns it. That is absolutely not true. So just to clarify, DC Comics owns the trademark to Batman. That's the concept of Batman, right? Now, that doesn't mean they own any drawing of Batman or any story written with Batman. Whoever creates that, when it's not work for hire for the company, if you create it on your own and it's not derivative, then you hold the copyright to that. And so DC has the trademark for the character, and you have the copyright to your story, and you have to come together in a written agreement, so that somebody, either party can use it commercially. One can't just take it and run with it. There has to be an agreement with both parties. And so, and he knows that,
Right. No, great. That's a great first point. I'm going to bookmark a couple of points today on this stream. That's that exchange of the story right there. That's what we're going to kind of bookmark that and see, like, is that where the supposed theft happened? What's going on? The legal part of that, right? We're going to talk about that. Real quick, shout out to Sarah in the chat. I see you up there. And Black Wolf, same Sonic, everyone. Good, Austin. We got Black Wolf here saying 2 questions. Okay, so we're going to divert. Okay, let's calm down for a minute. Okay, we was getting built up. Now Black Wolf's going to calm us down. Chris, what's your favorite Batman storyline? First question there.
Wow. I mean, if we're talking
one of them,
if we're going to talk modern comics, not just classic Batman. I love Greg Capullo's work on. I think he's a great Batman artist, and the Court of Owls thing was a lot of fun. It was like new and interesting, and that's the one that in modern comics that got me buying Batman again on a fairly regular basis. I hadn't done that in quite some time, but I like, obviously going back before that, Chuck Dixon was, the Batman writer for quite some time. But, my favorite Batman story.
Shout out to Chuck Dixon real quick.
Yeah, Chuck Dixon's awesome. But my favorite Batman stories are, from the 60s and early 70s, and they're going to be Neil Adams stories, but also a lot of Jim Aparo stories. That's when Batman was a detective, and that whole thing.
If I'm gonna pick one, I'm real big on the Dixon run, especially the Batman Nightfall. That's like my go-to storyline, bro. Like that was a wonderful storyline. First off, the introduction of Bane and everything like that. So Chuck Dixon is awesome.
But also, just to point out, I don't think anybody's written more Batman stories than Chuck Dixon. He did it for 14 years or something crazy. He's got a ton of film credits and television credits and film credits. Some of them, a lot of them, with Batman too, with the cartoons and all that stuff. Chuck Dixon signed the Batman Gate petition and donated.
So this is interesting, right? And I want to ask you about this in just a moment, because Chuck Dixon, I mean, he's royalty to me, and I definitely got to get him on the channel actually too. But let's get the second part of the question. Now, I want to ask you about that with Dixon too. But it says here, if you could produce a Batman movie, what villain would you pick? How would you use Batman? You probably want to use Riddler, right, Chris? But go ahead.
Not anymore.
I'm sorry. Just go ahead.
Yeah, I'm of the mind that, like the main characters and the main villains get overused, and there are B-list guys, that you can go to, like when you have a main character like Batman. He's got such a deep roster of villains that you can go deep, because Batman is such an iconic character. You don't have to always do Joker. Superman doesn't always have to do Lex Luthor. I would shy away from that a little bit, and I would go into that B list a little deeper and maybe go and
Dope.
come up with something interesting with Killer Croc or something like that. I would go off brand a little bit.
I would do Firefly now since they canceled Batgirl. I was looking forward to see Firefly and Killer Moth. That would have been cool. The CGI to it and everything. That would have been cool.
And also, it matters what what are we talking though? Are we talking Ben Affleck's Batman now, or
okay, yeah?
Or
which Batman would you pick? You can go all the way back to Keaton.
Yeah,
to now,
here's the thing that everybody like all the haters that are jumping on the Batman gate thing. They're like, oh, you're the Snyder, this and that. And I didn't know that whole beef was going on. And I honestly like the Matt Reeves movie, even with all this bullshit. It's like
so you would pick Pattinson.
I don't think I would pick him over Affleck. I think because. But I was very, very hesitant about Pattinson. I was like, it's a Twilight guy. It just didn't feel right to me. But I thought Pattinson behind the mask was great. I thought his acting and just what he emoted with his eyes and everything, and like that scene that I wrote with Paul Dano where he calls him Bruce Wayne. Like he was awesome in that. Dude, that was a rough scene to watch, man.
I love it, man.
He was great. But
shout out to Pattinson.
Yeah, but with everything that's going on in Warner Brothers, which I'm now getting more hip to, David Zaslav, I think he's leaning towards Affleck because he wants to rebuild the whole DC movieverse and have a cohesive universe like Disney did with Marvel. And they're not going to have two Batmans running around. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't see that happening.
Right, and Ben has already hooked up with Henry for Superman and Gal for Wonder Woman. They've got that trinity in place,
exactly.
And they need, they're probably going to go back to rebuilding on that.
Let's see that art go forward. Yeah. You can reboot after, just give us the finish of their story, and then just reboot.
I think they need a soft reboot, and I think the one issue I do have with Zach's stuff is that I think he went too dark for Superman. I think the move forward would be to start with a lighter Superman, and I don't mean a fun, silly.
Which
Superman.
may have been his plan, though, right?
Yeah,
it may have been start dark and
going,
then
So, I think a Superman movie should lead the way. And
it's all about Superman. This new regime, they really should be. Give us a Superman film sooner than later.
Give us a Superman film that's iconic, like the Reeves movie.
Yeah.
And and somebody, and it wasn't my idea. I don't want to take credit for this. Somebody mentioned the Captain America director, and he would get that. He's right. That would be a good pick.
I wasn't thinking that. Okay.
Yeah, because he gets the tone of it, and that's what's missing from Superman currently.
Okay.
In the movies.
Definitely. Superman. That's like I said, I'm all on board of using Superman as like that beacon of the new DC. That's what Zaslav wants to do with WBD. I think that could unite the DC fandom, right? With that.
They got to have a cohesive universe. They can't keep dropping these weird projects.
Can't do multiple.
They don't connect, and it's just it's a mess.
That's some bullshit. I know. I'll say it that's some bullshit, right? We got Big Man Jack in the chat. Appreciate you with a $9.99, and then we also have King George. Again, send in questions, and if I catch you in the chat or even super chats or stream elements, I'll bring it up as well.
If you get some hater questions too, I'll answer those.
Hater questions, pull up. We got King George. Which Batman is your favorite, Chris? If you was put on the spot, what's your favorite Batman?
Would you like to pick between the film guys?
I think we're leaning film. Yeah, I think we're leaning film.
Man, who doesn't love Keaton? That first one,
you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, because we were so not expecting that to be good. There was when I was in the office the day that Uslan brought the promo things in. It's like he dropped them off, and I got to see him after he left my car and showed them to me. And they had that first, the very first press photo of Batman in costume and sitting in front of the Batmobile. And we weren't expecting the black costume, and it was amazing looking. We were like, "Holy smokes, maybe this is gonna be all right."
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, no one expected Keaton. Like, he was a funny guy at that time, right?
Yeah. Well, especially since before that, they were talking about doing a goofy Batman movie with Bill Murray. And so then when they brought in Keaton, everybody was like, "Oh man, this is not what we wanted." But they
roasted him back then.
Yeah, but it was great. Yeah, Keaton was.
Oh yeah, no,
dropped
that's
it.
iconic. Yeah, Batman
Yeah.
89 is iconic. I think you don't get the Dark Knight trilogy without Batman 89. You know, I don't
Yeah,
think
but I
you get
thought Ben
that.
Affleck doing the Frank Miller Batman was great.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
like everybody, there's, like in the Nolan thing. Believe it or not, I like the Nolan films, but the problem I have with them is I don't buy Bale as Bruce Wayne.
Mm,
And
okay.
so like you know, first of all, the guy is he's got such a specific speaking pattern in his face and everything. It'd be pretty impossible not to pick him out. But
Yeah.
yeah, so just he's too particular.
Well, okay. I
In
feel that.
his
I thought Keaton was a surprisingly good Bruce Wayne.
yeah.
Keaton,
Yeah.
I was really surprised, like just how it holds up, even over, even like I said, beyond Bale. Keaton, no, I mean, I think Affleck. First off, I'm gonna be biased. Affleck's my favorite Batman Bruce Wayne combo,
Yeah.
like period. Like you can't go wrong with that. But Keaton holds his own with all the other Batman, Bruce Wayne. Cool stuff. Cool stuff there. So listen, we got another question. After we do this question, we're gonna go into, because again, the first point I want people to bookmark here. Chris said, he did email the story to Uslan. What happened there? What's the legal part of that? We're gonna, bookmark that, and we're gonna pick up on that conversation. Like, what does that mean? As far as what we know, what Chris knows, what someone else probably has some input on as well too. But real quick, Big Man Jack, is there a possibility that Matt Reeves wrote an original script? WB made him make changes based on Wozniak's script?
No,
How would you? I have no way
that
of
would
knowing
make
that, but
but that would make absolutely no sense. There's two problems with that. Is
Mm,
first of all, is that
mm,
structurally is where my plot overlaps with the film. It's the same
mhm.
plot structure, so it's
Let's actually get into
based.
that.
Yeah, it's based on my plot, and he wrote a full screenplay. Sprouting from that, it's the foundation.
Right. More
There
important
would be no
stuff as you
reason for him
started.
to go backwards. To
Mhm.
um, rework anything based on the story of mine. I just wouldn't see the purpose. But also, anybody that has ever signed a creative contract in their life, they know that Paramount and all those, even if it's a work for hire contract, actually. But Paramount in that contract is that all the work that you're presenting and putting forward is yours to give. So
Mhm.
why Warner would, it just doesn't make sense. Why would they?
Right.
It's much more likely that Uslan, had the plot and maybe even had reworked it by the time Reeves came in. That's a possibility.
Well, he had your
Maybe.
story the whole time.
Yeah, he had
So
it since 2008, so you never
right.
know. It's a long time for it to sit around. You don't know if he had his team fluff it.
Mhm.
But clearly, I mean, it went to Reeves to work from, because there are character composite rewrites from my plot in the film, and that Reeves could not have done that.
Let's dive in. Let's dive in,
Yeah,
Chris, because this screenshot, this is what sold your video. Because I was gonna play your full video, but I'd rather people actually click. I got the link in the description. Go to Waz's channel. At any time, watch his full presentation. But this was like the money point for me in
really.
your video. Waz, yeah, this really was. Yeah, this
Everybody
really
picks
was.
something different. Yeah.
This was the moment I was like, okay, like he's really, getting into this. So if you just, and I don't want you to recreate what you said in the video, because we could just play the video if we need to. But it's like with this side by side here, again, your plot's on the left side. This is your story. Now you're saying you kind of, you're kind
Yeah,
of asterisk a couple of things here. Why
yeah,
are we
because
doing that with the green? Yeah.
well, these are the only significant differences between the film and my plot, and
Mm,
and already half of these are not even worth mentioning. Like, if they're going to do Batman at the end of his career or Batman at the beginning of his career, obviously that's, who cares? That's a wash. You could do that,
mm-hmm.
and but like, with the Riddler's backstory, that he's all his people are he lived in a commune with a surrogate family, and then in the film it's an orphanage with this. Those things are practically
Mm-hmm.
the same. There's almost no difference in those two things.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like in my story, Riddler is planning Armageddon for everyone in the world, but in the film they're doing Judgment Day for everyone in Gotham. And all these
Mm-hmm.
changes are they all take place for the exact same reason, because if you want to do a young reboot, everything has to happen inside of Gotham City, and so that one thing accounts for every single difference between my plot and the film. And once you account for that, there's literally no difference between the two stories. It's the exact same plot structure that happens the exact same way, exact same beats, exact same character motivations, the same twists, the same ending. It's literally the exact same story.
So it's the character beats, Chris. That's what really, when I say it's the money shot, because it's like you're visually, right, giving us, let's say people say, okay, it wasn't every beat of the film, right? Because some people say this. They're like, oh, maybe it was some
Riddler
aspect
story,
of Riddler.
Yeah, of the Riddler story, it kind of was. I mean, there's not a whole lot missing. I couldn't think of anything. I watched the film, before I made the video. I had to go through it like 3 times. And it seems like
lucky you. I only watched it once.
Yeah, I know, right? but my whole plot is on screen. It's literally, the only difference is that if you're gonna take my story and turn it into a young reboot where everything has to take place in Gotham, then every difference is explained right there. There's no difference that can't be explained by that, and and it covers absolutely everything. So that
just to hit a couple points, because I want to get to. I mean, there is a to be fair, there is a rebuttal, to your it's out there, right, Chris? And so we'll kind of touch on that, because I think it's only fair to look at both sides of this. But this here, right, side by side, I was like, this is pretty cool how you did your asterisks here, saying, okay, they got my story, right, end of the career. Okay, let's make it the beginning of the career, right? I like how you explained that. Again, the whole criminal syndicate thing, the systematic problems in Gotham. Everything's kind of like beat for beat, right? This is the point, right? Beat for beat.
These are the big differences, and you can see they're not that different.
Right.
It's just they're just basically dressed up as something else so they could happen inside of Gotham. But like I had a global plague, and they did I did a biblical type of global plague. They did a biblical type of flooding in Gotham, and literally, it's just every single instance. It's to take my story, which was kind of a big story. It was Batman at the end of his career, so it could more like a Ben Affleck type story with the older Batman, right? And all they did was make do a young reboot where everything had to take place in Manhattan. And everything is a 1-to-1 change. It has and everything that got changed has an identical story function to what it's supposed to be in my plot. It is 1-to-1 every single time, and every single time for the exact same reason.
I encourage everyone, again, if you have not seen Chris's video, I encourage you, and Leon put the link in the chat, I believe, as well too, but also it's in the description of the video, where he breaks this down, right, and he really goes through these one for one plot beats. Now I want to touch on this global plague, because people was like, well, no, Reeves was using 0 year, right? Scott Snyder. Well, flood is like a universal kind of like biblical plague, right, Chris? It's just what I'm thinking with that is that that was in your story. People assume that it's 0 year. Yeah,
it's the exact same turning point. It's like he puts out all the riddles, and the riddles combine to reveal that he knows that he knows Batman is Bruce Wayne. And then, first of all, that's the same scene. I literally have, the Riddler Riddler turns himself in on purpose. There's a citywide manhunt, and then the Riddler purposely gives himself up so he can confront Batman with, the big reveal. But then afterwards, Gordon, thinks that, well, that's it. At least we know what his plan is. And so when we're talking about the difference between the flood and the plague, it comes at the exact same point. It's the new turning point. It's the new development that, that's not really his end game. If you really look at the ciphers, he's looking to kill everybody. So it came, it's not that, they're all used the same way. They just function the same way, throughout the story. Every single thing, beat for beat. So, and you could say, okay, there's this in this Batman story, or there's that, but it's not everything. in the same order for the same reason. For
Mm-hmm.
hey, it's just ridiculous.
Can you touch
Amount of
on, because
coincidence.
you had a really cool, I forget the term, and I'm sure you'll say it when I bring this up, the whole bomb situation with Alfred. You in your story treatment, you
Yeah.
have Barbara Gordon. What was the big difference there, and how was that? Because I think that's a really good way to kind of show that they was taking
Well,
your story beats. And what's that term when you kind of
character compositing. Character
compositing?
compositing,
Yeah.
right? Character compositing when you're doing script writing is real simple. It means when you got to cut a character out of a story, you give their scenes to some other character that's going to stay in the story. That's all it is, But everybody that has ever written a screenplay in his life knows what that is. And
Mm-hmm.
and the thing that you cannot get away from, besides the entire story matching, is that if you take my plot and you must turn it into a young reboot like Reeves did, you have to character composite these things because because in my plot, Barbara Gordon is the one who gets the riddle that it's booby trapped as a firebomb and everything. And so, but Barbara Gordon can't be in the movie because they're doing a young reboot. She could
Too
be in my
early.
story if we're doing an older Batman, but if you want to do a young reboot of my story, you have to cut her out. So right there, the reason she's cut out matches with everything else. They're going to do the young reboot, but also, there's only one person that scene can go to, and that scene is Alfred. It has to be someone in Batman's inner circle. It can't be Jim Gordon. Jim Gordon is doing the team up, they're solving the crime, all together. So that scene can only go to Alfred, and that's Alfred's scene in the movie. The exact scene that I wrote for Barbara Gordon, dead on.
His biggest scene too in the film.
Yeah,
Just I want to add that.
and basically all he's in the movie for. And then the scene that I wrote for Alfred, right, is not being used anymore because they gave him Barbara's scene, right? And the scene that I wrote for Alfred is then given to the mayor. It's the exact scene that I wrote for the mayor, and that's something that they will never ever get away with explaining and calling a coincidence.
So first off, the Barbara, again, when I say you drove a lot of points home in the video, that's why I tell y'all got to watch this video. Links in the description because he explains all this right in detail. But the Barbara Gordon scene you had in your story treatment was given to Alfred, right? So we get that because they want to make it a younger Bruce instead of an older. Right. Get that, but that scene of you had Alfred, since it wasn't in your script, it wasn't Alfred being with the bomb. He was being like bludgeoned to death. That was the exact opening scene with the Riddler
with the mayor.
in the film.
Yeah. Same thing. Yeah, exact same setting and everything. It would be in my plot, it's Alfred who's attending a dinner tray, and in the movie, instead of being Wayne Manor, he's at the mayor's mansion, and he's not with a dinner tray, but he's at a drinks tray, drinks cart, and it's the exact same scene. It's identical.
Opening scene, Sarah.
So you have two scenes. You have two scenes with three characters that have to be composited in this one super specific way. If you want my plot to be a young reboot, which is what Matt Reeves is making, and there's no way on God's green earth he wrote that by accident. That is ridiculous on the face of it. I will not even entertain any bullshit excuse for that.
like the exact like the point of action of each scene is literally from your script or your story's treatment. That's amazing to me. Like when you said that and he did the side by side, I was like, okay, I think we got something here, folks.
Because when people start saying, "Oh, well, that can happen in Batman story," and I was like, "This can't happen in the Batman story. That can only happen in my Batman story."
Exact scene.
And my story is the only story in the whole world that you can link to that movie like that. That's it. One story in the whole entire face of the earth. So
wow, that's and like I said, it's like James said,
and his producer's holding it.
But one scene is coincidental. Like multiple story beats is not coincidental, right? Well, I would have gave him one or even two, but we are showing the side by side. Yeah, watch the video. Shout out to James.
It has to do with three characters and two scenes. They have to be compositive, and you just that's like saying, like I said, it's like saying that Matt Reeves can chuck a dart off the space shuttle and hit a bullseye in the Sahara. He can't do that. That's nobody
amazing.
Can. Two people can't write the same story and have one. Have those specific rewrites in it.
And not multiple beats. That's the part again that drove it home to me. I was like, okay, multiple beats of your story. Now I want to kind of drive this point home because we do have a rebuttal coming up. I have just some information in my throat, but just before we do that, What's the end game, Chris? Just if I'm gonna throw this to you, because I say this because there was many Batman creators they gave us a special thanks, and Reeves said, thank you, bro, for your inspiration, but we're not going to pay you. That's what this list is. You're talking about the late great Neil Adams, and his estate, Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder. Right. People say, "Oh, 0 year, right?" They wasn't paid for this film. Scott Snyder wasn't paid for this film.
Well, the difference in all of that is that those are stories that DC Comics owns, so they don't have to pay. They don't know my story. If they wanted to use my story, they were supposed to negotiate a contract. That is all there is to it. When I write a story, I own that story. End of story. So if they want to use it, they got to negotiate a contract. They did not, and there's absolutely no way I'm going. And I mentioned this before, but I struggled, before using the word stole and saying they stole my script, because I've seen Uslan in Batman, videos. I've seen him around on YouTube or stuff talking about stuff, and when I met him, he seemed nice. And I like Matt Reeves. Where I've got Matt Reeves movies on my Blu-ray shelf. It was not an easy thing to use that word, but I don't have an excuse to say anything else. I don't know what to call it, because when they're sitting there kicking around ideas. And okay, we're going to make the new Batman movie, and this is the story we're going to use. We're going to use this Riddler story. Right there, that bell has to go off in Houston's head that he knows it's not his story to use. So how did they go and set about a $200 million budget to throw at this story when he knows it didn't come from him or anyone else?
Right. So just to drive this home. Yeah, because they would have just put, if nothing was said, if they would have acknowledged your story without you pushing, they probably would just put you on the same list as Chuck Dixon.
Yeah, you might be able to make the excuse and say that, maybe he thought because I had freelanced at DC, maybe he thought DC owned it. Yeah, but then, but I don't buy that either, because what's his excuse for not putting my name in the film? Or
did you get any response back? I'm assuming you reached out to Uslan.
No, when I saw the movie and I flipped my shit, I was like, I watched the movie. I watched the movie because I'm gonna watch every Batman movie eventually.
Yeah, same here.
But I just happened to be talking to Chris Batista that day, and we brought up the movie, and he mentioned to me that he thought Pattinson's portrayal of Batman was the most Neil Adams-like that he had seen. And that, really made me curious. I was like, what? Okay, I'll watch it tonight. Because he was like, check it out. It's going to be better than you think. It's not, the greatest, but, there's something there. And so, I watched it. And, I'm watching the movie, and then I'm watching my story kind of click off, beat for beat. And I'm like, and when I was just fucking getting more and more heated. And so
I bet, man.
But when we get to that point with, where Paul Dano is calling him, Bruce Wayne, where he's like he's blowing him up like that. And I'm like, I wrote that scene. I'm like, I'm furious at this point, because I'm like, what, I had to ask him if Michael Uslan produced the movie. Because I told him, I said, look, dude, this is a plot that I gave to Michael Uslan years ago. What's going on? And I asked him if he produced that movie, and he mistakenly said no. He thought that Uslan wasn't involved with all the flicks. He was like, no, I don't think he's got anything to do with that or anything. And so I watched the rest of the movie, and by the time we get to that part with the mysterious Joker at the end, which is the exact fucking ending of my story,
yes.
Then I was just like, losing my shit, and then the credits roll, and I see it's Michael Uslan did produce it, and Batista was wrong.
So you had Joker in your story treatment, Chris?
Yeah, that not only did I have the Joker, I had that exact. I had the mysterious man Joker who is not in the entire story and only appears at the end. Dude, forget it, man. It's like it's my story.
I'm sorry, y'all, like that. I'm just saying that's unreal, right?
Yeah,
what's happening here?
People that are like, oh well, similar. I was like, no, it's the same.
Beat for beat, and that's the main point I give. Yeah. They ask me, why this, why that? I'm like, y'all gotta ask Chris this, but yeah, you gotta exactly. That's why the link is there. Now you mentioned Chuck Dixon, so I went through this list of all the people that was special shout out, but was not paid for Matt Reeves, the Batman. Chuck Dixon, you mentioned him earlier that and again, I don't want to put Chuck Dixon in a situation, I'm not trying to make any issues here, but he's kind of supported your claim, right? Can we say that?
Chuck, he signed the Batman Gate petition and he donated to the Batman Gate petition. And then he messaged me privately, and I can't reveal all of that because there was discussion about a particular individual, and I don't want to, it was a private message. But he wished me well with all that shit, and he knows, he knows it's legit. I mean, he wouldn't have put his name on it,
Shout out to Chuck Dixon
if he didn't believe it, and he knows, I mean, there's coincidence, and then there's just ridiculousness. Yeah. I
mean, I can give you 1, 2. I can even stretch 3, but it's too many coincidences. And again, you got to watch the full video of what Chris put out. But again, they thanked Jeff Johns, who helped with the Earth One influences for the film. Jeff Loeb, obviously Hush, Long Halloween, but they weren't paid. Their estates, no one was paid. They just said, thanks for the inspiration.
And the truth is that my story is from initially written in 1990. So this predates all those stories anyway,
Exactly. Again, Frank Miller, just, you talk about Batman Year One. I know people think Dark Knight Returns, but also Year One was an influence for Reeves, Graham Nolan, obviously paired with Chuck Dixon. So, I mean, you see all these creators, and it's almost like if they would have gave you credit, Chris, it's almost like they would special shout out. As far as
I mean, it's not just obviously they would owe me a paycheck. You can't just jack my story and then go here's a thank you. I mean, it's a $770 million film. I don't know. And again, it's one thing if I had ever sold the story to DC or something. I never gave the rights to that story to anybody.
That's a big point,
right? Yeah. So it's my story. So that no one has a right to use it, and that's the end of that.
Right, because that's what people was assuming. Like, well, these are stories that's always been in DC, but like you said, Chris, your counter to that is, well, they didn't own my story.
Yeah, you can't retroactively buy the story from me.
Exactly.
After you went out and made $1 billion with it.
Real quick, because I mean, hey, they did some physical media with it, some digital rentals. So I think they got they may have got close to $900 million for this project or more. So
yeah, they're working on it too.
We got Don't Call Me Wade says blame Hamada. He's stolen from others. Well, yeah. I ain't gonna put Chris on record for that one, but so let's get a little rebuttal here. Let's get it as now there are some other questions I'm gonna kind of pull from, but I want to pull someone else on the panel here. This is someone who I admire their knowledge and scripts and the legal side of it. Though they could be a little controversial for Snyder fans, we got Script Doctor himself coming up on the channel here. Hopefully, he don't fall asleep.
No, but I'm surprised he's called me the rebuttal. I'm not here to do a rebuttal.
No. I said after.
Feel free.
After you.
Oh yeah. No. I want to make sure that Chris has got his ducks in a row because there's definitely some uncanny similarities here. But I mean, the only thing I would rebut is the fact that I've worked in Hollywood for 17 years. I have read at minimum 10,000 screenplays. And I will tell you this, the statistical likelihood of similar plots and plot beat structures is a lot higher than you'd ever want to believe or admit. I'm talking 15 to 20%. So it can happen. Like said, but you have a variable that's different, though, is that you actually have a chain of custody between your story, the producer, and the writer of that film.
Yeah, and also the character composite rewrites where they restructure my plot
which is fair, but
direct.
Here's a question that you'll get from some detractors, which is the mail bomb to Alfred or Barbara Gordon scene. Convince me that yours is more unique than anyone else has ever done it before.
Well, I mean, the particular use of it. I mean, it is besides the scene itself being an identical match, the reason for it being there is twofold. Is that it's supposed to intensify Batman's emotional commitment in the story because it's someone with his inner circle, and the other thing is that's the first indication that the Riddler knows Batman's identity. So it has a twofold thing besides being the scene itself, But when you also, add to the fact that, the reason it had to be cut because Barbara Gordon can't fit in the Young reboot, there's this extreme particular, we can't do that scene with Barbara Gordon. And the only person we can do it with is Alfred. And so Alfred's scene in the movie is the scene that I wrote exactly. And so that's more than just saying the scenes are the same. They're there for the same reason. And the character composite rewrite is there for the exact same reason, to make that to turn my story into a Young reboot. So there's a lot going on there. That's not just, they're similar,
Oh, no, that's not what I was asking. I was asking because the abstract idea is a villain or an antagonist has sent a bomb in the mail and has left a clue of that bomb to a person. Now, we can do another comparison, which would be Lethal Weapon 2. Danny Glover is on the toilet, and he looks at the toilet paper, and he says, boom. And so that is basically like the abstract thing of a bomb that is placed in the person's home, unbeknownst to them, with one signal that says, you're going to die, or implies that you're going to die. That is a very typical abstract story beat that's been used in many movies, many books, many stories. It's very difficult. Like that, basically, your detractors and anyone that's defending it can say that is such a common trope within story writing that you cannot claim sole ownership of it, even within the context of the characters that have been composited or reorganized with relationships to the main character.
Yeah,
that's going to be the difficulties with regards to making like claimingship to that story. It's just the nature of the game, because again, with screenwriting and with plots and stuff, it's all how creative can you be on the delivery and the execution of it. Now, again, you've got this very unique situation, which is the fact that there is a chain of custody between you, Mike Uslan, and Matt Reeves, which means that there is a logical reason for the ideas of your plot to make their way to Reeves and influence his writing regardless. So like,
it's all of my plot. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is literally the complete total plot structure of my story, which is a lot more than just saying, oh, well, this is, that's a Batman trope. And, there's a point where we are just get past coincidence, because, the truth of the matter is that Uslan's holding my plot and Reeves is supposedly writing his plot independent of mine. And it comes back being a beat for beat Young reboot story of my plot. And plus with the rewrites and everything in there, I think we're well past coincidence. I think any reasonable person is going to look at that and go, that can't happen by chance.
Right, right. So round one script doc. Let's
oh no, this is just trying to help him out, because he's going to be facing these questions, right?
Yeah, no, and again, that's why script doc again, Chris. Just full disclosure, script doc. I talked to him before, about these claims, and he said like, he has like a point here. It's just want to hit like every corner of this, right? And so that's fair, fair enough. We'll talk about that in a moment. I'm going to catch up with the chat real quick, because I think Chris has a wonderful leg to stand on with this. I really do. We got Sandy Region here. Yeah. He says, Chris, he said, great to see you on the live stream. Main question, do you have substantial evidence of the existence and delivery of your original treatment to Uslan? It wasn't DC, it was Uslan. Chris,
he's asking for DC. Yeah, so there's a paper trail for the history of the provenance of my plot and how old it is. Like I said, even in the very first video, the first Batman game video, that goes into all that beat for beat detail. On screen in the video, there's a Facebook chat, and I open a window from that Facebook chat, which is dated 2017, predating Reeves' screenplay. And I opened that actual file in that 2017 chat, and you can see it is the exact same story that we are talking about. So right there, we are proving that the story predates Reeves' story. And also in that very same chat, and again, obviously I could not have known anything about Reeves' screenplay, but we are talking also about when I first gave it to Archie Goodwin back in 1990 and why he didn't do it and everything. So that's in that 2017 chat. Again, this is before any work was done on the film. So obviously I couldn't be setting something up or anything. This is just conversation with Chris Batista. And also just yesterday, or it might have been this morning, I can't remember. But I have a buddy from back then who, he's a friend of mine, but he also did some assistant work for me, and then went on to do a few books for Marvel. At Marvel himself, he penciled a few issues under his own on his own steam, and he thinks he's got an original 1990 Xerox that we could all examine. And
oh wow,
and he's he didn't go into comics. He wound up becoming he's now a just retired NYPD captain.
That's interesting.
But he'll substantiate that I gave that story to Archie. And then we even wrote a story together afterward that I had totally forgotten about. But I think the reason that we wrote that was because Archie said the story was too big. So that, we probably came back and tried to write a, regular Batman story. But he sent me the cover for it today. It's dated 1992. It looks like we wrote it together. I have not read it yet. I don't remember what it is, but he's got a complete story that we also.
It's a pretty old story.
Yeah, he's got an original 1990 copy. Yeah, so that we could, forensically, look at that. Yeah, so there's, computer file, proof, and then this guy may literally just have, an actual physical copy.
I mean, another stream there, y'all. We get Chris back for that one. So, Script, what do you say that? Because, again, they're asking for this evidence. Is that enough? Just in your opinion, Script. I'm not trying to make you the bad guy.
No, this is good.
I'm just saying, just want to bounce this off of you. Is that enough, or do you need more evidence there?
Well, I've got more.
If the DC office has a record of his pitch and his submission, and it's logged in their files, technically, for any publishing company, they should be dating any submission done by either a staffer, and a full-time employee, freelance employee, anyone that comes in there. They should have that on record for legal reasons, especially considering the fact that, say that you took your Batman story originally, you changed the names of the characters, you've self-published it yourself, and it does great. People at DC would be able to that sounds so familiar. They'd probably go back, see your original take of it, and be like, hey, reach out to you and say, hey, since we know your story worked really great for your original character, that's like a Batman allegory or whatever, do you want to come in, rewrite it, and do it for us? Like that's kind of how they would like to do things. They kind of did that a little bit with Frank Miller after he did Holy Terror. They brought him back to do another Dark Knight series because of.
I don't know if in those days, like going that far back in into 1990 and stuff like that, and I spent quite a bit of time at the DC offices. I mean, I actually worked out. I was always a freelancer, never an employee. Just to be clear about that. But I did for a while, for months, work in the office. I used to just go there to draw. They I had a drawing space there. But I don't know that they kept records, that complete in those days.
Depends how competent they were at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not for me to say, but judging from what I know of just, how the office ran, and I would very much doubt that.
So the evidence is there, because that's what people, Chris, I'm sure you already
but I've got
this
other
already.
Computer files, I mean, there are more computer files that are dated, for instance, I was kind of rather famously hit by a tornado in 2011. And I retyped the story from a Xerox, and I've got that computer file dated 2011, creation dated 2000. We're talking years and years and years before any work on the film. I could substantiate that my story's much older. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a question, which is you said that you got Mike Guslin's card and you emailed him the plot. What was the conversation in the body of that email? Was it?
It was very short and to the point. It was, hey, it was nice to meet you. I hope you like the Baron Soil comic. I've got a Batman story that we never got around to doing at DC, but it would make a fantastic Batman film. And that is essentially all there was to that.
And then you included the attachment as well?
Yeah. I mean, they sent them the story.
Interesting stuff. Definitely.
That's actually I mean, there's a room for doubt in that because because this is the practice that usually when a producer gives you a business card, you send them an email with regards to hey, I've got this story, but you don't send them the script or anything. You actually have to let them respond and say, send me the script. If you volunteer there is room for them to argue that this was a gift, and it's dicey stuff. You have to have a really good and skeevy lawyer to sort of argue that for the recipient,
Mm.
but it's
Well, listen.
really not
Okay.
good for you
Right,
in
but
that
we
regard. Not
we
100%.
we are now discussing the difference between policy and what is legal and what is not legal. If I don't, sign the rights over to a story that I wrote, no one has the rights to use it commercially. That is just all there is to that. It
So-
doesn't matter what their policy is. Houston is a lawyer. He knows better. And you can't, sit there and say, oh, you showed it. I can't offer to, I can't, if I have a vintage car, I can't, show it to Warner Brothers and say, would you like to buy it? And then they go, well, thanks for the keys. It's ours now. I mean, it doesn't work.
This is
like that.
interesting.
No, that's different
Yeah.
because essentially
Yeah.
it'd be like you'd go to Warner Brothers with the car, hand them the keys, and be like, I've got this
Bring it
car,
back.
great, and then walk away. And then you just left it with them. They could actually claim
That
that
is
you
This is
no,
what I want
no,
to say.
no, we-
Now,
we-
Chris, I
we-
want you
we
to
are-
respond.
We are not
Chris,
heading down that road. Yeah.
I want you to respond, Chris. I want you to respond, but just real quick, because
Okay.
this is a sticking point. Because I knew.
All right, well, let it be a sticking point. Because,
No.
Yeah.
I won't say it like that, Chris. But I want you to respond. I promise you. But
Okay.
because I knew Script Doc was going to pick up on this on that first story I showed, where you emailed the story to Uslan, and could it be that he could just assume? But I'm
ownership,
just saying
yeah.
that's just a question, right? But what would you say to that, Chris?
that's
He can just
nonsense.
assume it because you
Listen,
emailed it.
All right, but we do. I mean, in '76, we changed the copyright laws to avoid this. If somebody creates something, then the copyright is automatically granted to them. It's like Title 17, I think, with the copyright law of 1976. If someone creates something, this is the reason. Why DC Comics does not run around the internet and pick up fan art and put them on covers. They don't have the right to. They own the trademark for Batman. They don't own the right. They don't have the rights to the copyright of any particular drawing that somebody makes. You got to come to an agreement in writing. And there's no DC Comics Batman story ever published that does not have a contract attached to it. That has never, ever happened in the history of Batman. If somebody writes a story, that is their story. They own the character, the writer owns the story, and they have to sign the deal and come to some agreement in writing.
To use your story.
The company policy can eat a dick, because you can't just say
I feel you.
Yeah, you can't say I'm taking your story. We're not even going to tell you about it, and we now own your story just because you showed it to us. No way. I'm not walking down that road.
That's fair, Chris. No, I get you. I think the whole chat gets your point with that, and I agree with you, Chris. But Script Doc, is that enough, right? If he emailed his story to Uslan, just in your opinion, Script Doc.
I didn't give the rights away to him. I just showed it to him.
Right. No, I got you, Chris.
Well, you showed it to him without him asking for it. That's different. Because it is, because when it comes to film rights, you don't show a script to anyone, a producer or anything, unless they ask to see it, because that then precludes the possibility of a deal.
That's a policy.
It is a policy, but here's the other part. You said that I'm not disputing that. I'm just letting you know, like, these are the arguments that are going to
I know what they're going to say. I know they can say that, but that doesn't, that's, again, we are talking about company policy does not apply to everyone out in the world. You can't just say, you showed us something, we own it now. And
that's not what I'm actually saying. I'm saying that you showed him something, but he has a plausible deniability to say that he could have had someone working on the similar story coincidentally, and because he didn't ask for it and you just sent it to him, he is absolved of any sort of issues.
So, Script Doc, drive that point home, because I want this to be clear. Even I think I'm getting what you're saying. I think Chris knows what you're saying, but just the viewers as well. You're saying if someone emails a story. I know, Chris. I know you want to go in. I promise you. But Script Doc, you're saying if someone emails a story to someone, they could literally just steal your story.
Well, in the independent side of things, they do it a lot because they're so desperate to be the mainstream. They want to get the accolades, and they don't care about the long-term picture, which is that you have to repeat your quality or better it with every subsequent film or story that you develop. So if you steal one that's awesome and you can never follow it up with another awesome one, you're going to look bad overall. But regardless of that part, the thing here is that
his circumstances,
with his circumstances, is that he sent the script without a proper request for it, which is not great.
Well, did you, Chris? Did you?
I didn't say here's a story. You can have the rights to it. Nobody.
Okay. No, you don't even have to say that. You just sent them the script saying that.
Listen. If I write a story, I own the story.
Yes.
Nobody can use it without a written agreement. That's that. It doesn't matter what your policy. You can't have a policy that allows thievery.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
You can't
that's
have a
true, but the
policy
thing
that
is,
overrides law.
no, that's
can't-
absolutely true. But the other part too is that because you didn't send him a log line. You didn't send him a quick premise saying, I've got this story idea about Batman at the end of his career against facing the Riddler. Would you like to read it and talk about a possible deal? Since that language wasn't used, you basically just said, hey, there's this story that we tried pitching at DC that didn't get made. I think it'd make a great movie. Here you go. That leaves it a lot open up. And if he didn't request it, he can just say, oh, I didn't request it. I probably didn't even see it. And because of that, he's got plausible deniability that he can rely on.
I don't think so, because like I said, because once we get to the part with the rewrites, then I think that's proof that they use my particular story.
Okay, we'll get to that.
He's absolutely correct on that.
Hold some heat real quick, Script Doc. Hold some heat. Let me catch up with the chat real quick.
Sure.
Because these, I think there are necessary questions that does need to be asked. I do believe that. But I do believe Chris has a lot to stand on with the story too.
Do I.
So I think it's fair both ways here.
Yeah.
Real quick, we got a comment here. Woz, too many similarities in the story. Sorry this is happening to you. Good luck. It sounds like you have a very strong foundation of proof to stand on. Chris, more is to come, right? I think I don't want to put you on the spot with this, but you have more kind of going on with your thrust here to prove this story right.
Yeah, there's documentation and and again, it's like my the be all end all is I think I've proven that they used it. So that's that's going to get past anything of whether they had a right to or not. That then let's argue that. But I think I definitely proved they used my particular story to make the film.
Script that.
Yeah.
Do you think, because I did the side by side, and obviously I think you heard the first part of this stream. Has he shown that like beat for beat, like his story was used? Like, do you think that's enough? Just the eye test and the ear test. Do you think they've used this story beat for beat up to this point?
On the court of public opinion, probably. But having dealt with the Writers Guild and arbitration, he's still got a steep hill to climb. That's just the nature of the game, because again, you're dealing with people who have read enough scripts to realize that the possibility of coincidence is far greater than we like to admit. The sad truth, especially among writers of all ilk, regardless of where you are in the world, is that as much as we want to be, we are not as original as we expect, because there is a sort of, especially like a collective unconsciousness when it comes to intellectual property, especially those that have been around for 40 or 50 plus years. People just have same perspectives that they pick up on, they share about it. You look no further than your average Batman fan film. You'll probably see one of any of the three following. Number one, a Joker story where the Joker blames his physical appearance on why he does crimes. Number two, Batman debating with the duality of being Batman or Bruce Wayne, or what's real, Batman's the real person or Bruce Wayne. Those are common parts. Number three, the Catwoman Batman love story dynamic. All those three are going to be commonly used across all Batman fan films, or a vast majority of them.
Mediums, yeah.
They're very and again, I think that's when we fall back on the rewrites and the character compositing thing, which is proof that they're not just similar, but they used it. So,
and Chris, I want you to define that in a moment here, Chris. I want you to, because you really that's a good point you keep bringing up about the rewrites and the character composites. I want you to expound on that in just a moment. But real quick in the chat, let's see, we got Hot Takes Tuesdays. It seems like it's a question you're dying to ask, but it's the chat's kind of crazy right now. But Hot Takes Tuesday, put your question back in the chat. I'll pick up on it as soon as you put back in there, okay? Because I know you've been really persistent, and I apologize. We got a hot story going on right now, right? But Marvel Maniac on the screen here says, can Woz explain why he felt the need to open an Indiegogo with the goal of $3 million for fans to pay him and his fam if it's not going to any legal fees? Now, I'm just going to say, just before you answer this, Chris, I was assuming that any fees taken was to actually take legal action. That's just me looking at the situation. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, but this is like an obvious thing. I don't have the money to sue Warner Brothers. Right. It's a multi-billion-dollar film studio, and nobody has making comics for a living has that kind of money. They know that, so
Right.
you need a lawyer who's going to take it on contingency. So that's why we're going public, trying to, raise awareness and see if we can get somebody that will come in and hang on to this and has the resources to do this. So I mean, that's the obvious reason, but but I don't know that we can pull that off even, so, but I mean, I think it's, an obvious, thing to, I don't know what these guys made for it. I just threw an arbitrary number on there. But if people believe my story and we can't get justice, and if they wanted to donate, what's wrong with that?
Well, the other
Right.
part you'd have to do is
Go ahead,
make sure you get a lawyer that knows the proper means of how to address a case like this, because you'll get a lot that are going to try to say, oh, we should sue Warner Brothers. You will undoubtedly lose there, because Warner Brothers technically has no connection to this. Think of it like you brought up the car analogy. So I'll do it this way. Let's say that
would be my thought.
Let's say that like Sil is a used car salesman, and I stole your car, Chris. I repainted it, I changed the pink slips and stuff, and then I sold it to Sil. And then
I'll buy that shit, yeah.
And you bought it, and you thought it was perfectly legal, everything above board. And then you, Chris, find out that your car is being sold by Sil, and instead of trying to sue me, you sue the used car dealership. But there's no actual. They didn't do a crime. Now, other people who have claimed theft have gone after the big company and failed because they don't go after the little guy. And you're smart to actually say, these are the two people involved that have produced something that is uncannily similar to something that I pitched to them, to pitch to one of the parties over a decade ago.
Yeah, I think
I think that's a smarter move to go.
Yeah, I think honestly that my gut feeling here, because of the situation and everything, that this is a mistake, or conceivably, I find this hard to believe, but maybe it's just an oversight by Uslan. And I think that, blame lands with him for the most part. And why I include Reeves in this is because he's doing all kinds of interviews saying how he, wrote this from scratch. I think that's provably not true. But it's very possible Uslan gave him an outline and told him that he could have credit for it, he could use it or whatever. And that's a possibility. But I think, in the sense of, let's try and sue Warner Brothers and everything, even just to kick up that dust and make that stink. I think what would happen is, because Uslan, like anybody else who's, signing a creative contract, that if they're going to produce something creative, in that contract, it's always going to be that, everything that I am putting forward is mine to give you. Yeah. So, I mean, that's in every creative contract, even if it's work for hire. So I think what's going to happen here is Warner Brothers is going to make this Michael Uslan's problem. And, we'll see what happens there. But, at the end of the day, raising public awareness is the only way to go, because I don't have the money to come after. Even Uslan has got hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever he's got.
He signs off on almost every Batman pitch he's given to make.
Exactly.
Take a look at what he's produced. He doesn't care about quality. He just wants the check.
True.
And if you when people with working class people sue people with uncountable millions, what happens? They'll kick it down the road forever and ever, and hope that you die of old
price you out.
Age. They'll just bleed you to death in court.
So I'll just say this, right?
It's not possible.
I'm sorry, Chris. I'm sorry, but I'll say this: like, as far as like, if Chris Wozniak opened up some kind of public support just for his platform, for what he's planning on doing in the future, that's up to the people. If y'all want to support, like, I don't think he's fooling anyone doing it. I'm just going to say just my point of view, because I'm just putting this out there. I don't think he's fooling anyone doing that. That's a fair question, yes, because if people are thinking that they're donating,
too, if you want,
right.
It's
if they're thinking that you're trying to lawyer up,
right?
Yeah,
no, but I'm clear about that. I don't. I'm clear about that. And I would put it to legal fee. Well, first of all, we're not talking about any money. This is, I opened Indiegogo thing and Patreon just to have
your
Batman
platform. That's
splashed around, right? Yeah,
right.
Just so people would see it. But there's no money in there right now. It's just I just made it. And
that's fair. And again, I appreciate the chat. Like, again, I mean, hey, Chris told me.
All right, good question.
Any question? Sure. Yeah. Right. So this is
the short answer to that is, if you feel like this is wrong, I'm a single dad with a 10-year-old daughter. This is like, if you want to donate and help out, because you don't think Warner Brothers or Michael Uslan or Matt Reeves are going to step up and do the right thing, then there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I mean that's
Right.
just,
That's up to you as a person, as an
yeah.
individual.
If
And
if you think my story's in the film and you appreciate the story and I didn't get paid for it, if you want to kick something out, I'm not going to say no.
And you can go to Chris's links in the description. I'm sure that link will be there wherever, if the YouTube or Twitter, I'm sure you'll find it, however he has that set up there. But I see nothing wrong as far as with a public platform. If they want to support you, people support me on this platform. We put a lot of time in what we do as well. So I understand that. But that's a fair question. And that's why we wanted to be fair all day with this, right? So we got Black Wolf here as well. Now, first off, Hot Takes Tuesdays, I got you next. He's putting this question in the chat. I got you. I promise. Black Wolf says here, thanks for the visit, Script Doc. Would love to hear you, Mikey, Fatal J over here. Well, this is my show, man. This is my channel. We're just putting a group together. He said, become a member. You don't know what you don't know. Shout out to Black Wolf. No, Script Doc is awesome. Again, I never talk about Script Doc about Zack Snyder on this channel. I never will. But we'll talk about everything else.
You can love his stuff. I don't, but that's okay, man.
It's okay. No,
just because I don't agree with the direction doesn't mean Warner Brothers isn't going to say, "Hey, it's low-hanging fruit. It's a possible good cash thing to pursue. Let's do it." I'm like, I'm thinking that's a bad idea for long term. But heck, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it.
It was doing so good up to that point.
No, it's fine.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Shout out to Script Doc here. This is good because, again, open dialogue. Saying. Free speech. This is what I love on this channel because everybody's not going to agree, right? But these are fair questions, and
but this is also something that we should be talking about because this happens all the time to comic book guys. Mm-hmm. Hollywood just comes in and they just dip and take what they want.
There's a lot of tactics in Hollywood where they can get away with basically saying, "Oh, no, we have this deal where you may have not realized it, but you did sign the rights away for this thing." They find all sorts of crazy tactics. A fun story, a friend of mine who I hadn't seen in 4 years, we were both in 2017, Warner Brothers put out basically an assignment project. They wanted more Batman universe shows to be pitched to them. And me and my friend pitched almost the identical same show. We hadn't seen each other in 4 years. We pitched it. We both got rejected. And then when we followed up and we were talking, we exchanged the pitches and they were the same ones. And it was just a sheer coincidence, but it went back into the fact that, he had a different pilot version for it, but it was same characters, same type of relationship, what have you. But he had a very different pilot to mine. And it was just we were just laughing at the irony of it. And then on top of that, we just realized sometimes you can have a lot of stuff overlapping. However, one of the shows that they did go with had one of the same characters, but it was completely different. And even some of the people that knew that we did the pitch were you got to sue the guys. Why? We all three of us used the same character from a Batman mythos. You can't say, "Oh, I'm going to sue you for using the same character that I did for my pitch." That's different. Whereas yours, you've laid out the fact that you've got certain methodology, you have certain use of characters, you have certain goals, and then you also have kind of a very, very similar type of climactic, disaster situation.
It's the exchange script, Doc. That's where you're at, right?
But then also the mysterious Joker character who's not in the whole story and only appears at the end.
Yeah.
Come on. We're just
Yeah. Well, here's the other part that's actually going to really okay, so Matt Reeves is an acolyte of J.J. Abrams, who's also with Alex Kurtzman and friends. And Alex Kurtzman is known quite well as having stolen and had to settle out of court the movie The Island with Scarlett Johansson and Ewan McGregor. So we do know that in that circle there is less than ethical tactics that have been made with those people.
This is all news to me. I've gotten private messages about some of the people we were talking about.
So here's the other part too, and this is far more common in Hollywood. So producers love great writers, directors, and they will always make more money by negotiating a deal with that person than they would by stealing it, because if they steal it, you get up a situation with an accusation and a lawsuit, and nobody wants to deal with that because it eats into their potential profits, especially if it's a hit movie or a hit TV show. So that's why, because theft does happen in Hollywood, but on the aggregate side of things, compared to how many things are in the workshop, how many things get produced, the theft is so minor, it's almost negligible. But on the independent side of things, it's obscene.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got this weird situation here because you have proof that you sent the plot that you wrote back in the 90s to Michael Uslan. You have digital proof that you've talked to other people about it.
Well, 2000s you sent to Uslan.
Well, he wrote it in the 90s. He sent it in 2008,
Right.
Yeah,
But no,
that's what I want
also
to make sure.
emailed it to DC. In like.
Oh, you did email to
And-
DC.
Yeah, because it was going to be a comic
After
book too,
Archie
right?
passed away, when the new guy took over the Batman office, I resubmitted by email again, and I think that's Gordon. I got to look this up because I don't know, but it was I think it's Jordan Gorfinkel was the Batman editor now.
But you got a digital trail with that.
I got to go look. Yeah.
Which is all actually really, really good. The only thing, because again, you're going to get weird, well, not so much weird, but fairly logical ones. Like, for instance, saying, oh, because Michael Uslan didn't reply to your email, there is a possibility your email went to junk or spam folder and he, quote unquote, never got it. I mean,
that's when we come back to those character composite rewrites where
true.
that they use my particular story. So,
that is true. But at the same time, those story beats and those character composite stuff can always be argued, especially in like a WGA tribunal, that those types of beats are very general, very abstract, and anyone could come to a conclusion with them and put them in similar formulas. But it's a difficult argument to.
Before Chris answers that, because I do want you to make this very clear, Chris, what you're saying with that. I've been holding up Hot Takes Tuesdays for like an hour now, so I want to address this real quick. But Chris, I do want you to break down this whole character composites and rewrite. I want you to make it very clear what you're saying with that, right? So I'm gonna timestamp that later when you say that.
Okay.
But we got
he has a very clear
before you go, Chris,
storyline there. It's
before you go with that though. Yeah, let me address this real quick in the chat. We got Hot Takes. It says, I'm assuming they're saying Warner's or DC sold their 2017 Wonder Woman idea. They don't know who got frustrated after years of trying to get the WBs. So in 2014, they put the script online. My God, I probably missed the next part of that story. But so they stole the idea for 2017 Wonder Woman. The script was online in 2014. I guess they want to reach out to Chris. His links are in the description. Reach out to Twitter, YouTube, whatever. Reach out to Chris. It says, way too many coincidences. People just think you're crazy when you tell them. So yeah, Hot Tech Season. Yeah, the links are there. If you want to reach out to Chris, his Twitter's in the description right now. Yeah, hit him up with that. Chris, I want you to define, because you know, Script Doc again, he's looking at, I want to speak for you, Script, but you believe what Chris is saying, but you're saying the legal part of this.
Oh no, I believe Chris wholeheartedly. I think he has a very convincing argument just on the nature of the things. The only problem here is that because the story beats that he has are not as specific or unique compared to other movies or films or books that have used them, that can work against him, because they can always argue, well, they're kind of common enough that with enough finagling and combination, you could eventually reach the same conclusion. But again, it's a tumultuous type of argument, because you have the paper trail saying, oh, this is what I've done, and I've been kind of revising and working on this story off and on, or whatever, for 20 years ish.
No, I wrote it whole cloth in 1990.
Never revised it afterwards.
There's one difference when I sent it to DC after Archie Goodwin, we were talking about, when the new Batman editor took over the office, and I emailed it to them. I gave it a very, very minor fluff. That's when I added the Joker part. That, and that is the only significant difference at all, is that I added the Joker bit, and that he was the unseen mastermind and wouldn't appear until the end. But that's when that came in. Everything else is identical. There's no difference between that one minor fluff with the Joker in about I got to go look again, but it's about 2000, 2002, something like that.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, because that's what people do when they have their outlines and their pitches, and it's like, oh, this got rejected. Well, maybe if I tweak it here or do something there, that might get the sale, and that's what writers do. So like, if you've got that history there, it shows that it's not been 100% on the back burner, but it's been something that you would go to and then you'd offer to pitch to DC.
Yeah, and I've also
over time,
the years, like in the first video, there's that chat with Chris Pattis where I'm asking him if he wants to, approach the Batman office with it. But there's more guys like that, people you've heard of and know that are associated, DC comic artists and stuff like that. I want to get the permission first before I throw their name in this nonsense.
Right. No, I got
I
you
wouldn't
with
call this
that.
nonsense. I think this
I
is
threw
kind of
Batista under
legit.
the bus because I know him well, and
All
it
right.
just
I
so
guess we'll
happened
forgive
that
you.
yeah. But the chat also, that particular chat also mentions that I gave it to Archie in 1990. It says erroneously, I think it says 88
Gotcha.
or something. But
I
it's
want to
not-
get to a specific thing. First off, shout out to Danzig. He said, almost say it's Bill Finger. I mean, yeah, I mean, this could be something that can go on for years, y'all, before credit is given. And I'm sure Chris is aware of that. Shout out to Sarah saying, is your story, first off, Chris, is your story online that someone can read right now?
It's right in the first video. I post the entire story big so you can freeze frame it or screen grab it.
So
So the entire plot is in the very first Batman game video.
Chris' YouTube channel is in the description. Check out his channel, especially that second video breaking down his claims about his story being stolen.
Yeah, I would start with the Batman Gate 2 video if you want the short, the short version of it. And then, if you're interested, you can go watch the Batman Gate first video, which kind of goes into more detail. It's,
what I want right now, Chris, because again, I think people could agree. Script Doc, he raises valid legal, some wiggle room that legally they probably could do to you, right?
Well, I'm not disputing what he said.
And that's fair.
Something up, but like we are talking about, in a realistic world, are we ever going to court? We are not. I mean, because they know I can't afford to. And
can we make that clear here, Chris? Like, you're not going to fight Warner's.
No. Who can actually go to a courtroom with them? That's not going to happen. They've got $1 billion law firm. They will kick it down the road forever and ever and ever, and just wait for you to die or bleed you out. So before the stream
started, Chris, and because again, I mean, I love the
I still need legal representation though for this, obviously. I mean, let's be clear about that. This is never going to actually make it into a courtroom.
Well, never say never, because there's always the options that Warner Brothers might say, hey, you know what? This isn't cool. Something happened with this producer, this writer, with this comic book artist and writer. There is a very slim possibility that they say, hey, we will support you. We won't financially put the bill, the legal fees or anything of that. But if you wanted to have, if you were to pursue this legally, you would have basically just a verbal support from Warner Brothers saying,
can we
you know what, we got swindled
the
to
legal
a degree.
part? I'm sorry, Script Doc. I'm sorry. I know I jumped on you.
That would be a crazy turn of events.
It would be,
just for the chat, Chris, because I want to make this very clear when they leave this stream. Legal representation. Are you seeking it or not?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, but I need someone to come in that has the resources to take on, to do this on contingency. I can't afford to
I'll
go
say
to
it like
with
this,
people like this.
Because I've in my adult life, I only contacted legal representation one time, and they had like this retainer fee, and maybe Chris just needs that retainer fees for them
we're
to take on a
going to talk
bigger
about
case.
more than a retainer fee.
I'm just saying.
We're talking about a very big movie.
But
you need some very deep pockets.
Something legal is still possibly going to go on with your situation.
Obviously at some point I need the representation. I need someone who's gonna, that could, bring them to the table, and between and that's the whole point of going public, is to attract that. I mean,
exactly.
I can't go out and buy it. It's not going to happen. So
Chris, if you have time, you could post your link in the chat for the Indigo or whatever funding you got going on.
I think it's just Batman Gate at Patreon, I think works.
Okay. Can they find it from your Twitter or your Patreon? Okay, Patreon. Okay.
Yeah, Patreon's easy too. Yeah.
So this is the thing. If you support it, rock with it. If you don't support it, you don't have to give anything to it. I think you have that choice as an individual. It's not that complicated, right?
Yeah.
Not that complicated. If you decide that you don't want to support it, don't support it. If you want to support his story and what Chris is saying, you have that choice as well. So pretty clear. I don't think that's too complicated. But Chris, I do want you to, because you touched on a few things when Script Doc bring up different possible legal issues you may run into with this situation. You fall on the character composites and rewrites. Can you define that just so we know? where you stand with that.
Yeah, I think that there's with that particular part of the Batman Gate 2 video, where we just and that's where the part where they write proof, because I think you can't argue against it. Where with the because we're talking about 2 different scenes and 3 different characters in a specific combination that is needed to turn that plot into a reboot, and it fits completely. So the complexity of that, besides the fact that the whole rest of the plot just matches, the complexity of that one thing, I think is I would love to find some internet statisticians that can calculate the odds that Matt Reeves wrote that independently, because I think it would be pretty ridiculous. So there's anybody out there that knows how to do statistics? I would love to see. I would love to see the Vegas odds.
15 to 20%. From my reading of it, from my experience, it's about 15 to 20% odds, which are low, but a lot higher than people would care to admit. But not necessarily. I wouldn't say that's across the board with everything, though. That's the thing, right? Because that's like reading 10,000 screenplays and be like, wow, this screenplay reads so familiar, and then you go back and like, oh, another guy wrote it, and then you do the research, you realize these 2 have had no connections, not even part of the same country, and yet they came together with like the same plot structure, different character names, different lines.
Yeah, but we are talking about Matt Reeves writing a plot that is his own producer's holding, and that it matches beat for beat. Yeah, and then also with those specific rewrites of my plot that appear in the film.
And I want you to go deep into that. I want you to go deep into that, but real quick. I'm sorry, Chris. I know you get ahead of steam, and I keep cutting you off.
I'm sorry.
But I want you to finish that point about the rewrites and character composites. But anyone that's coming in kind of late into the situation, you may want to kind of go to the replay, because Chris laid out a lot of good evidence. And first off, you probably should watch Chris' video first, the Woz video in the description, before we kind of comment on his case here. Just saying, we got people coming in kind of late. Real quick, Sarah, Sam, message of respect to Woz for sharing his story, what happened to him, and for answering the questions today. Saying thanks to me and Script Doc as well. But appreciate that, Sarah. And also, the message kind of cut off Woz, but she also says, good luck to Woz for future projects. So
thank you.
And I feel we'll connect with him in the future. But I'm just saying in the chat, don't come in here late, trying to say, oh, I don't believe this, because I think Chris laid his claim out there. And what Script Doc is doing is really, I appreciate what Script Doc is doing. It's kind of, putting those pointed questions that, legally, Chris may run into, right? But character also, composites and rewrites, Chris, go ahead.
Okay. Well, again, the particulars of that are so specific. You might be able to say, okay, that this scene can be written by somebody else, and maybe that scene can be written by them, but you can't write them both, and attribute them to specific characters who then have to be cut, because they can't fit in a young reboot for that specific reason. And, and the only other person that scene can go to is Alfred, and Alfred's scene in the movie is that exact scene. And then Alfred, the scene that I wrote for Alfred, which is not being used, gets bumped to the mayor. And the mayor saying, it's just a ridiculous thing to say. And not to disagree, but we are way past 15 or 20% when we are talking about those things, especially since, like I said, Matt Reeves' own producer is holding my story.
Yep.
This is, it's craziness, so, but the real issue here is that this is a big picture problem with Hollywood and the comic book industry. They do this relentlessly. It's not, it sucks for me that I'm dealing with it now, but they come in and pilfer all the time. And then people go, people are literally so used to Hollywood stealing from the comic book business that they're acclimated to it. And they go, well, yeah, they do that. It's,
that's not cool.
It's not cool with me.
It's the fact that, unfortunately, when it comes to the larger companies that own the publishing for like Marvel, DC, and any other stuff, when they do negotiations with regards to characters, they sell those rights that they have purchased from the writer themselves when they've done the contract. So they might even, a good one will include the original writer and be like, hey, we're selling this story that we published of yours that we negotiated with for film rights or what have you, and we're going to bring you on negotiations to do that deal. But they don't want to do that because they'll lose money. So usually when they're doing the work for hire or the freelance or they're negotiating the contract with regards to the story, they will sneak in film rights there. And if you're not paying attention to have a good lawyer, you've signed those away in that initial contract and you don't get anything further. And that's my opinion. I've seen that tactic before. I don't think it's very ethical or responsible, but it's what those publishing companies and their studio affiliates have been doing for decades. And the only way to change that is really for if you're going to sell a comic book story to a comic book publisher like DC, you have a lawyer that says, all right, if this comes up for film right negotiation, I want to be at the table for that. And not a lot of lawyers, unfortunately, especially for representing talent, or like especially representing talent that doesn't deal with film that often, never really explore that. They just try and want to get the quick contract, or like the legal team or legal representative just want the quick contract, the quick commission, and out, which is horrible because it's a disservice to what their responsibilities are to their clients as creators, artists, writers. So yeah, like, and the other part too here is the fact that if let's say, because again, you have a case because you sent your plot to Mike Uslan. If you never did, and the Batman still came out the same thing, it would be the weirdest freaking coincidence that we'd ever see. But the thing is that you have that connective tissue. That's the big variable there, which is the fact that you have proof that, number one, you've submitted the story to DC Publishing. You've also sent it to Mike Uslan. And all of a sudden, you know, a decade plus later, you're seeing very similar story beats at an uncanny level being executed in a plot. And then this is the other part that's going to really like cause an issue, is the fact that the Riddler plot matches up quite much to what you said on your video, but then you also have the Catwoman subplot and the Penguin Maroni subplot, and you're basically looking at 66% of the movie is quote unquote original compared to your 33%.
I'll going make back that adjustment. That's a good argument.
Go with it.
But
there's one extra part, because J.J. Abrams and his legal team did something very unique with Paramount with regards to Star Trek, which is that they were able to secure a separation of rights because they were able to make the property 25% different than the original source. And as a result, you've now split the franchise. That rule has now become common practice, which means that even if you were to sell that story to Uslan and he paid you for it, and they took it, if they altered it by 25%, they could get away with not having to pay you.
Well,
and that's the tragedy of those types of tactics.
I don't even think we're there. So there's that.
Wow.
But Hollywood shenanigans.
Yeah, I mean, because again, you account for any. Okay, first off, just to make this very clear for people that's probably coming in late. Again, y'all really should watch this whole stream because we put out a lot of information. And also Chris on video is in the description when he explains this. But you're claiming your Riddler plot, the main plot was used for Matt Reeves' film.
Right, it's the main storyline. It's the Riddler storyline. And I don't have anything to do with Catwoman or.
Right. So I think Chris made that very clear.
But those are subplots to the movie, though.
They are.
Right.
Yeah. So you don't have those without the main plot. They're written around the main story. So I mean, but if you want,
they all revolve around everything that Riddler's doing. Yeah. So like without Riddler's plot, you don't really have those other two stories to be connected into it, which is absolutely true.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and good point. I'm gonna bring this up. Shout out to Intel in the chat. I'm gonna bring it up in just a moment. But the main point, the Riddler story, that's been jacked from you basically, and beat for beat, you really laid this out for people. So if people are confused what you're claiming, that's what you're claiming. Now another point, and again we go all the way to the whole biblical flood moment as well. Shout out to Sarah, sending you well wishes, Chris as well. Let's see. I just missed the doggone. Here we go. Intel. The antidote. I thought it was a really cool point in your video as well too. What was your explanation for that? Because again, it's all in the video, y'all. Chris explained all this, but go ahead if you want to touch on that.
Yeah, there are a couple of scenes. There are two scenes in the movie that I think everybody knows that whether you like the film or not, Matt Reeves wrote a very, very tight script. The movie is very structurally tight and everything. So there's not a lot of fat to be cut from this one. But there are two scenes in the movie that make no sense whatsoever. They're small scenes. One's at the beginning, and one is at the end. And the first one is that people are firebombing a bank and spray painting the word "broke" on the bank as they run from the bank. And That has absolutely nothing to do with the film. There's no, not a single instance of economic collapse in Gotham City where a bank has no money. That is directly a holdover from my plot. That is one of the plot lines that weren't ported over, is that the banks claim they have no money, and then the people riot against the banks. That is directly, that explains that, what that's doing there. And the other thing is that mysterious green serum that comes out of nowhere that has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. But in my plot, and that everybody knows that's a weird moment when that came out. Everybody's like, "What the fuck is this?" In my plot, Batman had slowly been poisoned throughout the entire story, and when he's having his final battle with the Riddler, he's incapacitated, he can't move, and he's in need of an antidote. It's like it's just another thing that just fits in, even though it's missing. The things that don't make sense are still explained by my plot.
Yeah, I don't understand why an adrenaline shot would be glowing neon green.
Yeah, that stuff had nothing to do with anything. It's just, it's just. But when you read my plot, it makes perfect sense what it's doing there.
Interesting.
Well, I will say this because I'll put it on record for anyone in the chat that might think that I actually liked the Batman. And I don't mean any disrespect for you, Woz, because I read your plot. I liked your plot a lot better than the Batman film, because I felt the Batman film was probably like the worst written Batman film we've ever had, just because it was too long. It was using a lot of derivative tactics with regards to like dialogue and certain and like the subplot stuff with the Catwoman and Maroni and all the stuff going on with there. And it just felt
those are the bean counters, adding all the extra characters when you make a movie and you have a main villain, but then we got to have 3 other villains.
Well, the other part too is there's like called character disbursement in screenwriting, and this is a tactic that has been kind of newly done. It was sort of introduced a little bit around the time of Miles Miller and Alfred Gough when they were doing Smallville and whatnot. And it's basically saying you've got a core hero, and they've got a trait like they're either very strong, they're very smart, or they're very passionate. Well, we can't have that character do everything. They need to talk to people. They can't do voiceover and inner monologue. So what we'll do is we'll disperse the character into 3. So we'll make one really strong, one really smart, and one really compassionate, and they'll work together in a team and be the superhero. And you got that with like Smallville with like Superman, Clark Kent and Chloe Sullivan. And then Pete Ross coming in and out, but it was really like Lex Luthor. You have the same thing with Arrow. So Green Arrow has John Diggle as the compassion, the lefty. You have Green Arrow as like the muscle, and then you got the Felicity character.
It's like the opposite of character compositing. They're adding
exactly, yeah. And they do this for basically to move the story forward without having, but through like drama and dialogue, as opposed to what the comic stories or what pulp novels or things would be an inner monologue, like the person's thinking with themselves. We're listening to their process. A lot of producers, at least at that period, don't like that because it's it robs the drama from the story, because you're just listening to a voice as opposed to seeing action. And when you have 3 characters each having a role, you can then inject a little bit of action to that. And when they did that with those shows, and when you kind of see that going out through the Batman with all these other like meaningless characters that don't really do anything.
That's why you have character compositing. You're supposed to cut those guys.
And, character compositing or character combination, whatever you want to call it, is basically saying you have these 2 characters that facilitate the exact same thing, make them one. Like that's just it. And
real quick in the chat. I mean, I think we got a good discourse going on for most of this stream. I think people being cool in the chat. Again, shout out to Marvel Maniac. I think again, it's fair questions. He was critical of Chris the entire video, but I think Chris answered everything. So I think we're good, right? I just want to kind of do a little chat check there. But I think everybody's cool right now. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm not even critical of the video either. Like I think it's a legit, I think case to explore. I mean,
yeah.
And also to just bring attention to the fact that, like I said, I'm not the only guy. I mean, most people, when this happens to them, they just eat it. And it's wrong, because I mean, it's not necessary, and there's nothing you can really do about it in the sense of, you can't physically force anybody to do the right thing or anything like that, or if when they have that much money, you can't make them bend, but when you bring it out to all the Batman fans or comic book fans and movie fans and everything, and just air that shit out. Why are you keeping it secret?
Mm-hmm.
Let everybody know. And if you make a stink, it'll be embarrassing, and they will stop. I mean, I guarantee you, Michael Euston's going to be way more careful. What he does with someone who's plotting the future. I mean, we probably won't see any more shenanigans from him.
So
I would love it if he could be a bit more like conscientious about what he decides to push for producing Batman, because I mean, just
that's another conversation.
I mean, for all the times he speaks about how much he loves the character and comics and whatnot, it's like, well, in Hollywood, never listen to what people say, listen to what they do. And you kind of take a look at his credits, and you're like, wow, anytime like someone at Warner Brothers or another co-production came to him with a Batman concept, he's like, yep, here you go. You can do it. Just give me my check, because I bought the rights back in the 70s, and I'm not getting rid of them until he passes away.
So what we're going to do now, if we still got another 20, 30 minutes from the panelists, especially Chris, if you still have a little more time, now that was the easy part. The script doc was the easy part. We got more critical. No one's coming on the panel, but I'm gonna throw some stuff to you that what I'm seeing on social media, Chris. I kind of told you about this earlier, but I'm gonna kind of throw you a few things and just kind of see how you respond to it. And but
sure.
Again, shout out to Script Doc. As long as you can stay here, bro, just hang out,
sure.
Throw in your comments as well, because I think it's fair. I think it's a fair assessment of the legal side of it. And I think we did a good job with that today. But Black Wolf says here, no cap, I watched BVS Zack Snyder's Justice League entire film run as background noise more than I watched the Batman. Oh man. And honestly, I liked it. I want the sequel. I don't know how to take that, Black Wolf. It sounds like you don't like the film. That's Chris' story. I'm just saying.
Listen, I don't dislike the movie as much as other people. I think he did a decent job.
I think the story is cool. It's the execution. That's my problem. That's my only problems with the film is the execution.
And I was surprised with Pattinson behind the mask. I thought was actually good. But with Bruce Wayne, he's not Bruce Wayne yet. But then again, Matt Reeves is going with that. Oh, Bruce Wayne has not been developed yet. His mask is not. So that's a way to it's a way to come at it. We'll
good old milking the characters for more movies.
But then again, we're back to that discussion of whether or not there's going to be a sequel. And last month or a few weeks ago, I was absolutely there's going to be, but I don't know about it now. I mean, the way things are.
Maybe we should submit another story, Chris.
Yeah, well, there's that one I haven't read yet. From '92. I don't know who's in it yet. But
submit part 2.
My buddy gets back from vacation, I can read it.
Make the Batman part 2, Chris.
It's the Batman part 2. Bruce Wayne. That's the goal. He just develops Bruce Wayne.
And just to be clear, because today I think in a tweet I called it a sequel, but I'm being facetious. I don't know what's in that story. I wrote it.
You don't have a second story to that?
Yeah, there's a 1992 Batman story that I just found out about today, and so, but I haven't read it. He sent me the cover.
It's not your story.
No, I wrote it with my.
Oh, okay, got you.
Who
it's
also
been so much the last time you've forgotten enough about it.
I did forget that story actually existed, but I wrote it with a guy, and he went on to draw some books for Marvel, but then he left comics. He became a police officer, and he's a retired police captain. But he just found it, and he's like, I think I got the other one too, but like I said, he just left on vacation. It looks like vacation today. He said he's going with his girlfriend. I don't know what that meant, but I mean, we'll have that story maybe next week, and I could, I don't know what's in it, but I'm curious to read it. Yeah.
They probably should reach out to you. Like, how do we continue the story that you put out? I'm just
You
throwing
gotta
it out
come
there.
correct with a check first, because you didn't pay for the first one.
Bring that check first, then we can talk about the sequel, right? I got you, Chris. Now, there's a few things. Again, I want to be very fair with this stream. Again, I was convinced by watching your video, links in the description, and the information you put out there, Chris. And I encourage everyone to look at all the evidence first. Don't just jump in here and what I'm saying, and say what your cousin told you or whatever about Chris Wozniak. But let's get into a few. People are falling on a couple claims that's floating around social media, right, Chris? And I'm just going to kind of throw it to you. we're going to end this stream kind of touching on a few of these, critical things that people are trying to say. Okay. So, in your script, you talk about, Gotham hidden in chaos, right? At the beginning of Batman's career, which we know that is, you had the end of the career, but it'll slip to the beginning. Right. Gotham was a complete chaos. Now, one claim out there is that, well, there was like a couple video games taking this chaos term, and they basically were saying like this wasn't an original term to you. This was like 2001 that the Gotham and chaos term was used. I guess how would you answer that? How would you combat that? Say, well,
I wrote the story.
Yeah,
I wrote the story in 1990. I could prove I wrote the story in 1990. I could prove I gave the story to DC in 1990 and several times after. In regard to the video game, I don't know anything about it.
I don't either.
I played video games, but I never played. The last Batman video game I played, I think, was on Sega.
I guess they're saying are you? It's almost like they're saying, well, you're trying to say you're inventing chaos in Gotham when that's like a normal trope.
But I mean, obviously there are some things that can happen or appear in other stories, but I have to include them because they are in my plot and in the film. So they're just it's just to show how many overlaps there are. But we get to a point where we're not talking about tropes with those particular turning points and the mysterious Joker mastermind thing and all that nonsense. So I mean, I have to include them. But if you're going to pick at those low-hanging fruit things, and so that could happen, but okay, we'll go through the other 40 things and then get to the character compositing thing and explain that to me. I mean, you could nitpick at this or that, but why are they all there in essentially the exact same order, the exact same relationship to each other? And, and why is Matt Reeves writing the same story when his producer's holding this story? So, I mean.
So the corrupt Gotham script, I'm going to kind of just your opinion.
Sure.
Just separate from the entire story Chris put together, the whole
are they talking
corrupt
about
Gotham is not original. No, I'm just saying, just in theory.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're trying to say.
Yeah, in my video, I think we covered that. Like, obviously, corruption in Gotham is a trope of Batman comics. However, I don't know of another story. Maybe there is one, and you can correct me, but I don't know of another story where there's complete systematic corruption of Gotham, meaning everybody in law enforcement and everybody in government are all being paid off by a single source. Now, as far as I know, that's only in my plot and the film. If it has happened somewhere else, I'm unaware of it. But
what the closest is Nolan, sort of. Batman Begins, sort of. That's the closest.
Batman Begins is pretty close to that because you have the politicians, the courts, and the police all working with the mob. But the other part too is that what Chris describes in his is basically not just massive corruption at a high level, but it also has an economic collapse is fueling that massive corruption. And that's kind of one of the things that in the Batman is so poorly conveyed. Like the economic collapse things, like you don't even understand what's really going. There's a renewal fund, and that it's supposed to help the poor and underprivileged, but it's not. Yet we're not seeing the repercussions of that really. Like it doesn't even feel like it's just there, but it's not really feeling like it's driving any part of the story. It's just part of the conspiracy. Whereas in Chris's outline, that's partly what's driving the story. It's causing the good cops to be overwhelmed with the crime and riots that's going on, and the bad cops are just kind of relishing in it. And then Batman is stuck in between, working with Gordon, trying to, turn the tide, so to speak.
Yeah. Now,
that's my understanding of what Chris was doing with his.
Yeah, and obviously you read my actual plot, but I mean, because I had to recently too, obviously, because of everything that just happened. But were you not like weirded out by how much current events are kind of in that 1990 story? With the virus coming out of China and the economic collapse, and I was kind of, I'm not. A few people had mentioned this to me, and I had the same reaction. It was like, wow, there's a lot of stuff like that are in the head. War with Russia and China teaming up with Russia and all this. Yeah, it's like it seemed like there was a lot of like current event headlines in that very old story.
Well, I see
And
some. Yeah, I mean, not only that. Well, I'm thinking you wrote this in the late '80s, 1990. The AIDS issue was right there. I can totally see that you kind of maybe subconsciously picking up like, oh, we got the eggs, we got a plague, we got something you can play around with there. We got, the Cold War, it comes to a peak and then collapses. Like, there's so many influences in there that you could be conscious of or unconscious of, but you thought were like really interesting for Batman. That works well, and because you used it in an abstract way for Batman, yeah, it ends up sinking into current day events. But who knows? Like another 25 years, it could also work then as well, right? Like that's
I know, right?
that's part of like doing a story really well.
Yeah.
Is you're not taking dated stuff of the current time and putting in your story. You're taking the conflicts around the dated stuff, because the conflicts are forever. The dated stuff that keeps it there, like saying, oh, well, we've got a corrupt president who used to be a real estate mogul. Like, that's a little too specific and on the nose. But if you're saying, no, we've got a guy that's trying to, deliver a worldwide plague for his own personal gain, I'm like, that's abstract enough that you can play around with that. And then you can probably see allegories in our own history, and then hopefully not in our future with regards to those types of actions. That's kind of good.
There was an attempt to rework that plot once to use it somewhere else. In '93, I was doing a little work at Image with Jim Valentino, and we tried to use it as a Shadowhawk. We tried to convert it to Shadowhawk, and I gave it to Jim, and Jim thought it was a great story, but it was like, it's a great Batman story. It's too Batman, And he said, why don't you just rework it and do something original with it? And we did that. I created a new character called Pulse, and I was going to do it. Mark Texera, who's Tex, I'm sure you guys know, was going to be the artist. And there's a little preview for it in the back of the first Shadowhawk trade paperback, where Tex has some sketches and it talks about the project. But Jim Lee hires Tex away to do the Union miniseries. And so it never happened. So I never got around to rewriting the story. It just stayed a Batman story.
Interesting.
But I mean, that's another. But also that's another Providence, thing to show that story's been kicking around forever.
No, it's cool. Real quick, let me catch you with the super chat here, because I wanted to, again, just one more critical thing, because I think we had enough critical stuff about Chris.
No, we can. Let's go through.
But I do want to just touch on one more thing, because it's like, I know people, they keep throwing this around like it's gold on social media, when again they probably haven't watched your video. That's one thing. But we got Anna here saying you can like Battison and Batfleck. My headcanon is Battison is young Batfleck. I don't agree, Anna. Problem solved. P.S. Good luck with the case, Chris. I'm rooting for you. Hey, headcanon. That's what you want. You know. Yeah. Well, wishes to you.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see two Batmans going forward. I think David Zaslav is going to make a decision.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he wants to have a 10-year plan. He just has to figure out what that is.
He's already announced it, right?
He's announced that's his goal. He's just got to figure out how he's going to do that. And I'm wishing luck.
I'm done with the critical stuff, because, like I said, I think Chris was very fair. He didn't know what was coming to him today, and much respect to you, Woz. You throwing it out there. But no, we're done with the hard questions.
Okay.
We're gonna wind down here in the chat. Any last minute comments or questions for Woz, even for Script Doc? He came here with all this legal babble and stuff. You want to ask him stuff too? Throw it in the chat as we wind this down. But Woz, I just kind of want to put it out there, like the human aspect of this, right? You say you kind of knew on Twitter. Were you surprised at like this were you literally, or were you expecting this backlash?
That you always expect, because everything is so, I mean, if you tie your shoes online, then people have something to say about it. I mean, that's going to happen. But all the like the negative commentary about Batman Gate are clearly coming from people that did not even watch the videos. They're just like, why this, why that, and like all the questions are answered in the videos. You just have to watch them. And when you say that, I get so many responses. I'm not gonna watch your fucking video. Dude, the proof's in the video. Just watch it and then explain to me why you think I'm wrong. Video. And then I'm not gonna do that. And then they're like, oh, I'm not gonna give you the hits, or I'm not a YouTuber.
That's where the information's at.
Yeah. I'm not trying to make a YouTube career out of this. I hope and to never make another video ever again.
Just come
I
over
mean,
here,
honestly,
Waz. That's all you gotta do.
I just want fair compensation, credit. I just I'm not looking, for damages and shit. I mean, it's, they use my story. I just want, whatever you paid the other two writers. I want fair fucking credit. I mean, this is nuts that,
And
they're
that's
just
fair.
gonna use. Yeah, I mean, my name is not even on the movie. It's ridiculous.
At all, not even like a special shout out. Like I said, I put up those 30 creators. They gave a special shout out to.
Yeah, they don't have to pay those guys. They
didn't pay them at all. They didn't pay them
or
at
they're
all.
dead.
No, all those contracts were ironclad to include movie rights with them. I
Yeah,
don't think
because
it's
it was
fair, but
DC.
it is what it is. Yeah.
DC owned the story script, Doc. Right? That's how
They
works.
buy the story. So basically,
Yeah.
like you, if you write the story, you get the credit for it, and whatever you negotiate for the sale of that story to DC for them to publish is whatever is negotiated. And as a friend of mine, Robert Meyer Burnett, says, it's not what you deserve, it's what you negotiate. And if you can negotiate that stuff legally, you're in good hands. And you just got to have a good head on your shoulders. And unfortunately, and this has been notorious for comics since their inception, is that there's always been bigger players involved that have done a lot to exploit the people that write, draw, and essentially create comics. I mean, you got the famous Siegel and Schuster issue where they sold the rights, knowing they didn't really understand what they were selling at the time, and it took basically Neil Adams to help get that credit back restored onto the character. And that's just the nature, and unfortunately that's been a habit in a lot of industries on the creative side of things.
Yeah, there's a horror story with Schuster. I think it was Siegel actually. That in the 80s he was an old man, and not doing well.
He was blind. I met him as a toddler. He was blind. I had no idea at the time he was blind.
Well, he was actually working a minimum wage messenger job and used to make deliveries to DC Comics, and he would be in the lobby and say, I created Superman, and people would laugh at him, and get no respect. And it was Neil who basically, took it upon himself to blast that cause and make it public.
Wow.
And he got them a pension at least, And that's what I mean. That's what we're doing.
It's amazing.
Public opinion does have sway. When the optics, because the optics on this, let's face it, are fucking shitty. It doesn't look right. I mean, so,
and it wasn't even just Neil Adams too. Neil Adams definitely front loaded on the side of Warner Brothers and DC, but Joe Shuster is cousins with Frank Schuster, who's a famous comedian who him and his partner John Wayne were on Ed Sullivan's show, and they're the only act that could actually have as long of a sketch on that show ever. So if they wanted to do the entire show as one Wayne and Schuster sketch, they would be allowed to do that. That's how popular and big they were. And when the powers that be found out that Joe Shuster's related to Frank Schuster, and Frank Schuster uses Superman in some of his sketches because he got permission from Joe to do it. We're going to be in trouble if this starts to pick up steam. And Neil Adams was already a few months ahead of that, and got a little bit of justice. Not entirely fair justice in my opinion, but just a little bit closer to what should have been.
And Neil was only able to do that because Neil had continuity, and he was making a very good living, in advertising.
Yeah,
and doing,
he could walk away and not worry about it.
Right.
Yeah, he was not beholden to Marvel and DC, and everyone that is, has trouble speaking up because it's you'll get blacklisted, you won't get work.
That's a real thing.
Yeah,
if you're not kind of grandfathered into this,
I mean, I get messages from Marvel and DC guys that are like, wow, you got a case, but
really,
you can't say that out loud.
Yeah. So, and you understand that too, right? They can't really put themselves out. I mean, in certain cases.
So, some guys who are now separate from being, in the Marvel and DC stable have gone out on their own. I mean, like some guys like Chuck Dixon who, no longer depend on DC.
Dixon.
I mean, he was supportive, because he can be, because he walked away from Marvel and DC, but
they can't touch him.
If you are under their thumb, like if you, and nobody makes anybody draw or write for Marvel or DC, it's a choice. But the truth of the matter is that none of those dudes are getting rich, and they're not making, to draw comics, you're not yet. People think it's like luxurious or something, and then these guys are living in the lap of luxury. These guys are grinding, to maybe pay a mortgage if they even have one. I know guys that are, name brand comic book artists that are, living out of their parents' house, or they can only draw comics because their spouse has a good job and,
Oh
can
wow.
cover, I mean, it's not,
It's not glamorous.
right. It's not what you think it is. It's not like, most guys working in comics are grinding it out, trying to keep the lights on. And then you got these Hollywood dudes that are coming in here, that are already mega millionaires, and then just a pilfering stories from people that are
It's
working
a
class.
special shout out, no money to all of y'all. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
that just comes
it's,
also down to like the editorial side of things. Like they don't market them well. They don't even aggregate some of
that's
the
policy
merchandising
now.
stuff
Yeah.
well. It's I mean, you look at the business structure of it, and you're like, oh wow, they can like claim and report that they made like $1 billion this year. But when you look at how they're achieving that $1 billion and where the expenses and overhead go, you realize they're really mismanaging their own well of property. And then the last 15 years, the people that they're approaching for writing and artistry is subpar. Because I know amateurs that are absolutely should be professional level, that should be being able to charge $300-400 a page for a contract at one of the big two, and they're just not allowed
for a
to.
fact, like a lot of people don't know this, but like for like last 8 years, I co-owned a comic book company with an investor, and they had a lot of Marvel and DC guys working for us and stuff like that. And we were never allowed to publish. There's a big ass story behind that. But we stockpiled comics, but we're never allowed to release them because of
Wow.
our money guy. But the guys that were working for me, I paid them all fair rates, and I treated everybody that worked for me at that company will vouch, that they were all treated well. But what shocked me was, because I had been away from comics before that for maybe 15 years or so, is that like guys that are working today are making less money than I made in the 80s. It's crazy. Like the inking rates and their penciling rates and stuff like that, their rates are going down.
Yep.
And and we are talking, I mean, what is it, 40 years later, 30 years later, 32 years later, whatever it is.
That's 40, basically.
Yeah, what's the cost of living with inflation and stuff like? They were literally getting less. They paid less today than they were making in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot wrong with that. It's a bigger story with that. We got a few more questions before we close this out. Again, any question you want to send to Chris Wozniak, the Woz here, standing his ground, and we got a script doc as well here as well. First time appearees on the panel of Sub doing really cool stuff. We got the Batfleck movie, the main account. They want that Batfleck movie, Chris. They don't want to talk about Patterson. They said, what are the odds of WB has an NDA on Ben's script? He can't publish it, but Jay Oliva can post storyboards, make the Batfleck movie. Is that a real thing? Like they can kind of own the storyboards of stuff, or the script?
Well, they own everything if they commissioned it, yeah. But if Ben had a script and that they contracted for it and then just didn't make the film, then Warner Brothers owns that story and they could hide it or do what they want with it, But he's been paid probably for it at least. And, but when the movie doesn't get made, if he's got points on it, he's getting burned there. I don't know. That's contractual stuff is
that's
and we also talk. Yeah.
The other part too is like if Jay Olivia is releasing storyboards, is he releasing the ones that he sold with regards to the contract for the script, or is he releasing the stuff that were his ideas that he didn't actually sell? Because that's a big difference. Because you can do just like Chris said, like you can do your quote unquote fan art and release that and be like, oh, it's in storyboard format, and this is what I would have done based off like what I read of Batman's Ben Affleck's script, but it wasn't commissioned that way, so it's Cole help mine type of thing to share to the world. You can kind of get away with that without any issues. The only thing being is like if there's certain content in that storyboard that Warner Brothers would consider very poignant story information, they would then go after him for that and be like, take that down or disavow it or something. We're using it somewhere down the road. You're spoiling it. You're costing us money.
What it comes down to, if they paid for it, they own it. But if they didn't, if that's if those storyboards were done for Ben Affleck, it's hard for them to make the argument that they own any of that, because they just don't. But if they are spoilers in there of the story they bought, then they could probably get a cease and desist and stop them from showing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he put it's public, and I don't know if he removed those tweets. So that's
Yeah.
a fair
Yeah,
point right there. We got
that's
Marvel.
who knows that situation
Mhm.
now. Yeah.
We got Marvel Maniac here. Says, even though I disagree with some of the conclusions Chris reached, everyone should watch and the video and come to their own conclusion, right? Not immediately dismiss anything he said, listen and judge. And that's the main point I had. I just want to say this really briefly on Twitter. You know, I was like, you know what? I don't know the full story. I just know what Chris put out there with that video. And I was like, yo, that makes sense. And then I saw the counter argument. I was like, well, Chris kind of has a better point than the counter argument. That's how I judge. I know it sounds simple. That's how I judge stuff, y'all. And so having Chris here, and again, shout out to Script Doc here, throwing that legal, mumbo jumbo that I couldn't do. But I think it was a really fair thing just to say, like, what you probably will possibly face, Chris. But then also, I think you're prepared for what you're going to face. And so, hey, everybody don't have to agree. You got your own opinion, but everyone's been pretty respectful. Except like one guy that was up there
And
earlier.
Chris has variables that other people that have made similar accusations with other properties just don't have. So, I mean, that's more power to him. And I wish him the best with regards to this pursuit because it's, I mean, I've seen these situations. They're not great to be in. And so, yeah.
But that's why, you got to make them public and because these are situations that people should know about, whether or not I ever get paid is one thing, but if I don't get paid, I'm going to make sure that everybody knows, because this should not be happening. So,
and it's the awareness part, right? It's like at the very least, as long as that story, and that's what I looked at. I was like, you know what? Like, I don't know, right? If Chris is going to win this case, if he's going to get a case with this, but if people know, if the masses know, and
it'll stop, and it should stop.
That's a start. That's a start. Yeah. Public opinion is a start. So, and hey, maybe the next person after you, Chris, will win on a slam dunk, but you kind of paving that road. I mean,
well,
maybe
the idea here is to make them just stop doing it so we don't have to get involved in these situations.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not like they can't afford to pay. They have the money. If they're going to use stuff, they should just pay the creative people that are doing the work. That's That's
so you're getting those voices and the more voices as possible. I mean, and like I said, because people, I mean, they told me all, the last couple of days, Chris, it's like, oh, it's a long shot. He won't win. This ain't. I was like, you know what? Just get the story out there, right? And you never know what's going to happen, and so that's what we're doing today. You know what I'm saying? So cool stuff today. We got Sarah saying, "Woz, a sign of respect for what you've been through, taking the time to speak." Sarah has donated to the Indiegogo campaign. Best wishes. Put the link in the chat as well. Again, it's a personal choice. Like, if you don't jive with it, you don't have to. But if you're feeling what Chris is saying, what he laid out to you, and that his work and his platform, what he's trying to do, if you want to support that, do it. Right? Just like y'all support my platform, y'all support whatever else does. That's your personal choice. So I'm all for that. All for that. And I'll make sure after the stream, I'll make sure I put that link also in the description as well.
Thank you.
Because definitely I support what you're doing, man. And she put the change.org as well. So shout out to Sarah finding these links, making that awareness. It's all about the awareness. I think we got all the questions out of the way. So Chris, what's up? I know you say you got something probably coming up next month.
I got a new graphic novel coming out next month. It's called Penelope Powerhouse. So I'll send you the cover and stuff so you can check it out.
Definitely.
But it's adult animation type thing.
Cool.
It's not
looking forward to that.
It looks good. It's not,
not for kids.
But and actually, there's like a little teaser video on my YouTube channel. It was the first video I ever made. So there's a teaser for it there. But like I said, we'll be dropping that next month. And
cool stuff. I got a feeling that Chris Woz will be back on this channel. Just one day, something's gonna drop. I'm like, yo, Chris, the streets want to hear you again, man. So I may reach out to you about that. But
we're good.
Thanks for being a great sport today, man. Like this, I can't imagine. I'm just, in all seriousness, what you're going through with this situation. But I hope you're seeing more people are kind of listening to your story, right? And that's what I want to kind of demonstrate.
when people are actually watching that Batman Gate 2 video, I think we're collecting 90% of people in favor. It's I mean, obviously with something so heated that we have fans, They're gonna express their opinions loud and proud.
And they feelings.
Yeah. I didn't know
it's
they
like
felt
don't
that.
platform them.
Yeah, but they have stuff to say.
Yeah, much respect to you, Chris.
You're entitled.
Wozniak, you're doing your thing, man. And we're gonna follow your story. And like I said, we're gonna follow up. I'm definitely gonna reach out to you again. Script Doc, thanks for coming up, being the bad guy today. Thank you, Script Doc.
You kidding? I deal with Hollywood a lot. I see all sorts of skeevy stuff. And you know what? When you're seeing someone that has a really convincing case and like a path of connections to the parties involved, it's like, you know what, this isn't right. We got to make sure that we're addressing every question we can and prep not just the people that are supporting it, but even some of the detractors. That, you know, things can be weird. There's always room for doubt, but in this type of situation, it's tough to build that doubt bigger, because there's a lot of things that are like questionable that even I as a screenwriter is like, listen, if Woz never sent that or never met Mike Uslan and this happened, I'm like, that's tough. But the fact that he made the attempt, that he's got the history behind it, that brings in brings on logical suspect. And I think it should be explored. And this is not the way I wanted to meet Chris Woz, but I'm happy to meet you, sir.
It's fine. I appreciate it, and thanks for being the devil's advocate. Because you got to test it.
He's
right?
naturally there. Yeah, scripted. Yeah, he's naturally.
Okay.
Listen, people hire me for this because it's really important.
How did I stand up? Was it okay? Or?
No, this is a great.
I mean, listen, okay? I'll put it to you this way: if Warner Brothers hired me to be like, "Yo, the Batman's not working. Can you rework it?" I would look at it and be like, "Wow, there's a lot to do here. Where did you get this story?" And then maybe I would have probably, if it did lead to your name, I'd probably call you and be like, "Yo, dude, they're doing this." Because crazy. That's just the way. I mean, it's just so weird. But yeah, I was really honored to be here.
Script Doc, put your Twitter or whatever link you want to in the chat here. People want to find you as well.
Yeah, it's just my name, just Script Doctor PhD.
Well. On Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, that's I have a YouTube channel, but it's kind of dormant because I'm actually writing like.
He don't do that on YouTube.
I'm currently writing 2 screenplays in Hollywood as we're doing this.
You don't do that on YouTube, bro.
But no, I'm happy to take some time, talk to you guys. Cool, spread the word of this. Hopefully get some more people coming in that can share some information, help build up Chris's case, because that's always helpful. And hopefully this might be a good, it might reflect on the new brand of what's going on at Warner Brothers Discovery, where they start seeing that their audience wants to have more respect given to the entire creative team that has ever worked on Batman. They need to open up their doors a little bit and be like, yo, you guys are the reason why this property is valuable. Let's pay it forward, because we wouldn't be here without people like you. And you end up making more money that way. I mean, you really do. If the studio says, hey, this writer wrote this script from comics, we adapted, we part him up with another screenwriter, got a director, we gave them some money, they're doing great. Fans are like, yes, that's awesome, that's great. There's reverence to people that built the franchise. Like
and it would be the right thing to do. I mean, Disney obviously came back and did that with the Kirby estate, where Jack never made a nickel other than his page rate or for all his properties and everything. And Disney, because people spoke up and there was a public outcry, they acknowledged that. And Marvel never did. They basically told them to fuck off forever and ever. But Disney came in and they were like, okay, this is not right. Let's straighten this out. And they did the right thing. But maybe Warner will too. We'll see.
We'll see. It's a new regime now, so we're gonna see how they're gonna handle the situation. It's a little transition period going on, but we're gonna be following this story. You already know all DC. I'm gonna definitely follow that again. Shout out to the panel, Chris Wozniak, and his cause as well, and Script Doc as well. I think Script Doc, they want you back on this channel for some reason. I don't know why, man. But we're gonna get Script Doc as well.
You kidding? Listen, like everybody on your channel, I just want some great DC films, and I want the people.
That's all we want, man.
That's all we all want.
Some good Batman too, and credit the writers. on it. So shout out to everybody in the chat. Stay in this fandom. We talk about all things pertinent to this fandom. We're talking about DC today. We'll catch y'all next time. We out of here.
There's no need to regulate. Free speech is always the better way. The truth will never discriminate. Free thinking has built us all a better place. Better place where we can all conversate. I mean, converse. Don't make this shit worse. Just try to appreciate. After this verse, so take us to church. Let knowledge disperse. Ideas then culminate. Turn into action. Speak words with reason and passion. Honesty spoken, no need for retraction. Keep on demanding your full satisfaction. We made it happen, though we collapsed and broken in fractions. All of these factions overreact and broken in fraction. If I played a part, then I'm sorry, Miss Jackson.